I'm calling this meeting to order. This is a Redmond City Council study session held on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, commencing at 7 p.m. Council members in attendance are Councilmember Stewart, Councilmember Anderson, Council Vice President Forsyth, Councilmember Fields, Councilmember Nueva Camina, and myself, Council President Kritzer. And I believe Councilmember Salahuddin is trying to join. Actually, I will ask if someone can share the meeting link with him. That would be great. He just messaged me as I was about to start the meeting. And I will announce him as he arrives, as he is in Olympia today and will be joining virtually. We also have Mayor Angela Burney joining us for this study session as well. There are 4 items on our agenda tonight: the Old Firehouse Teen Center facility discussion, the Capital Investment Program project updates Q1 2025, Climate Resiliency and Sustainability and Vegetation Management Plan update, and council talk time. The first item on the agenda is the Old Firehouse Teen Center facility discussion. Before we enter into this discussion, I want to first just recognize that we have a lot of wonderful teens here with us in the audience, and I want to thank you for coming today, for coming the last couple of weeks to share your thoughts with us. The council has not made a decision on this facility yet. The administration has taken some action in recent time, but this is the first council study session discussion on the future of the facility. And know that we've been listening to you and look forward to having this discussion with our administration and with our council before the council makes any decisions. With that, I will turn it over to Lorraine Hamilton, our Parks and Recreation Director, who will introduce this item. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Lorraine Hamilton, Parks and Recreation Director, and this evening I'm here to share an update and information on the Old Firehouse Teen Center facility. I do want to emphasize that, just as Council President Kritzer just stated, no decision has been made about the future of this facility, and that's going to be the nature of our conversation moving forward. I would also like to talk a little bit about the fact that there's been a lot of conversation and questions about how we may plan to honor or celebrate the facility of the Old Firehouse Teen Center. My response has been and continues to be that since no decision has yet been made about the future of the Old Firehouse Teen Center, we do not feel it's appropriate at this moment to announce when a celebration may be or what that may look like because a decision has not been made. When a decision has been made, that is something that can absolutely be discussed with both the community and council and within the city to honor and celebrate whatever that might need to look like. And so I know that question has come to me quite a few times, and so I thought it might be helpful to just kind of set that out here. If we were celebrating it, it would be as though a decision had been made, and yet we have not yet made a decision as to the future of that facility. And so tonight we are going to talk through a handful of things before we talk directly about the condition assessment. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Old Firehouse Teen Center operations, what they've looked like from an hours and participation perspective, just to kind of give a lay of the land as to the activity that has been housed in that facility. Talk about what current accessibility there is for teen services and programs. And then we're going to dive into the Old Firehouse facility condition assessment and the good faith inspection, which is a hazardous material inspection that was done. Look at our opportunities moving forward and talk a little bit about some decision points that will be ahead of us, ahead of you all. So for anyone who's not fully aware as to the way that this particular facility has operated, it has operated Tuesday through Thursday, 3:30 to 8 p.m. and Fridays from 3:30 to 6 p.m. During this time, there are drop-in spaces, classes, services with partners such as Youth Eastside Services or YES. There's the RIPAC group that meets the Redmond Youth Partnership Advisory Committee, which helps plan events and volunteer opportunities. And then our music program is extremely vibrant as well. There's open mics, there's live music, there's acoustic sets, there's poetry slams, all of these different things that have occurred in that space. Since the beginning of this school year, so since September, there has been tracked 122 unique users in that facility, 31 RIPAC members, and we have live music events 2 to 3 times per month. And so on any given week, though, there is anywhere from 4 to 8 classes that also occur. And there are times of the year, of course, where it's far more active, and in the summer, it is very heavily utilized for summer camps. At the beginning of April, youth services were moved out of the old Firehouse Teen Center due to the deteriorating facility and our difficulty in continuing to maintain a safe environment for our youth. We moved the vast majority of the programs to the Redmond Community Center at Marymore Village. One of the opportunities that this provides is to expand access. This facility is larger, it has more amenities, and it is fully staffed at all hours, which allows for us to have a bit of an economy of scale and also increases our opportunity for programming as opposed to perhaps putting it at another ancillary site or a smaller facility. There is transit and transportation access. We understand that there are still some concerns here, and so our staff continue to look at the options, whether it be helping to transport via van, with light rail coming as well, that is an opportunity, and then King County is going to be expanding their Metro bus service throughout the city and down into the Marymore Station area when light rail comes online this spring. We are working as a staff with our teen staff and with the teens to help create spaces that are places that they feel comfortable. And so this has been, there's been a bit of a gap as we've moved services. And so next week, the furniture will be going into that space, and staff is working with teens to say, how can we help make this space yours? What can this look like? And so that is absolutely in process. It is not into fruition yet, and yet we are working really hard to make this space as welcoming and inviting as we can. Additionally, there is more ADA accessibility in our location at RCCMV. The old Firehouse Teen Center, while we were able to make some shifts over the years, really was not a very accessible space, and that continued to create a lot of issues for us. The music programs, for the most part, have relocated to the Redmond Senior and Community Center. Additionally, we are working to build out a recording studio at the Redmond Community Center at Marymore Village so that we can continue that service with our teen music program. And so I really just wanted to share this information. This isn't really where we're focusing most of our time tonight, but I did think it was important for us to kind of put ourselves on the foundation as to where we stand now and where we've come from as we start to look at the facility and the decisions facing us into the future. The first facility condition assessment was done by the city in 2011, and even at that time, the facilities condition assessment found that the old Firehouse Teen Center was in poor condition. At 8,600 square feet, the observed deficiencies, which are the deficiencies that are observed, so it's exactly what it sounds like, through a rapid visual assessment, places the facility condition index at poor, which is 0.23. The range is 0.21 to 0.25. This facility in 2011, 2012, when the first facilities condition assessment was at a 0.22. And so it did only deteriorate slightly. That being said, that was due to really significant effort by our facilities team and was acknowledged by by our consultants that to keep a facility of this age and of this condition operable as long as we have has taken significant strain of resources, both staff and monetarily. Additionally, this facility has code compliance issues, ADA issues, structural issues, and hazardous materials throughout. Those items are not included in any costs that you see. So when we look at a facilities condition assessment and we look at the numbers and the dollar amounts that they're assigning to any one item, that is not including any of these other things that are present in this facility. This facility has code issues, it has ADA issues, it has hazardous material abatement that is going to need to be done, and all of those items will continue to increase the cost of any even simple repairs that are happening within that facility. Another number that we see a lot in our facility condition assessment is the current replacement value, or the CRV. The CRV for the Old Firehouse Teen Center places it around $4 million. When you look at that number, you think, oh, that's not that bad if we can replace the facility for $4 million. But that's actually not what that number is telling us. It is not the cost of a replacement, but the value of the existing components. So for the Old Firehouse Teen Center, for example, it has its original single pane windows. The building shell is original. The roof is past its useful life. So there's items within this facility the cost of these items, they're not costing out a new double pane energy efficient window. They're costing out a single pane original window from the 50s to get that current replacement value. When you look through the facilities condition assessment, there's kind of 3 buckets that have the major facility deficiencies, and I'm just gonna kind of give a rough overview of them. The first one is the exterior shell and roof, the second is interior walls and doors, and the third is the foundation and the building systems. So each of these scores in this area are an aggregate of, or an average of, all of the items in that bucket. So the exterior shell and roof scores at a 3.7 out of 5. That being said, the windows score a 5. The walls, the exterior walls score a 4. So some of the really vital pieces to the building, the things that make the building, are scoring the lowest because many of them are original to the structure. And so we do, as I said, have original walls and windows. The roof is failing with significant pooling, particularly around the hose tower. And the hose tower in and of itself is flagged as a pretty significant structural issue as it's unsupported masonry. And then there are hazardous materials throughout. So when we did, after the facilities condition assessment back in about 2012, they did do a good faith inspection in which they found where all of the different hazardous materials were in that facility. Since then, we have been heavily maintaining it and really closely monitoring any disturbing of those materials so that we are able to abate them as appropriate. As an example, there was a time in the last couple of years when there was a program going on, the wall was hit by a table and disturbed the wall. So the walls then became friable and have asbestos in them. And so we had to close that off, we had to abate it, and we had to paint it. The total cost for a approximately 5 by 5 area of the wall was $4,000 for us to abate that portion of the wall. So every time there is a disturbance, it does create really significant lift on our maintenance, and then impacts operations as well because we're unable to use those spaces in the same way. Additionally, there is a basement that is closed off with a decommissioned boiler and other equipment that we are unable to access due to materials that are in that space. The second are the interior walls and doors. The score here is a 3.2 out of 5, so it is not quite as low, but again, there are places throughout that scored a 4 or a 5 and some that scored closer to a 3. The doors throughout the facility are original, as are all of the fittings. The ceilings are not up to code. As I said, the hose tower is a significant issue, and there need to be also additional seismic and ADA upgrades. Whenever projects have been undertaken in that facility, wherever we are able to make it more accessible, we have done so. But again, any additional disturbance of our facility does create the need for abatement. And so we often have to evaluate the size of those projects as we go.
Yeah, can you just describe, is a 5 good or is a 5 bad?
Oh, sorry,
Because
thank you, Mayor.
The score
A
was
5 is
like-
bad.
Thank you.
A 5 is low. Sorry, yes, sorry, it goes the opposite direction. Thank you, Mayor. So 1 is excellent, 5 is poorest. Thank you for that clarification. And then, yes, and then there are seismic and ADA upgrades that need to be undertaken in that facility. The final section is the foundation and building systems. This aggregate score is a 3.3 out of 5. There is root intrusion in the foundation. We are not sure how impactful that is at this point, but it is visibly seen by the inspection. Again, there's that abandoned boiler in the basement, which we're unable to access. There's no central air in this facility, so the air in the facility, it is heated through space heaters, wall heaters, and kind of forced air through fans. There is also no air conditioning in any area of the building except for the recording studio. We have explored trying to put central air into this facility, and there's a couple of issues. One is, again, we would need to put a full central air system in, including pipes and all of the things, which would disturb the facility significantly, driving up the cost. The other piece of that is that the structure cannot support the size of systems that it would need. So the HVAC equipment would need to go onto the roof of the facility, but the structure cannot support it. And so we would need to do significant structural upgrades to the facility to be able to put central air in, which would make it the safest and most habitable space. The electrical, fire alarm, and security systems currently do not meet code and are also obsolete systems. So while they are present, and as far as we understand, fully operable, at this point, we are unable to fix them, upgrade them without a full system changeover because they are obsolete systems and out of code compliance. So again, these are just kind of buckets. These are not even all of them. This is pages and pages of things within the facility condition assessment. I'm trying to boil them down into kind of the most major issues that have brought us to this moment. And so as we had worked through the most recent facility condition assessment, as staff has continued to try to maintain this facility, this year we have hit a point where the maintenance of that facility has reached a point where our resources and our staff have been unable to put forth what is needed to keep this as a safe and habitable space. And so when that realization was made through conversations with city leadership, the determination was made that it was important for us to be as proactive as possible in creating spaces and moving programs to other locations so that we could avoid having a building failure, which means a major system failure, a structural issue, or something that would deem it so that we could not enter that facility any longer. We wanted to try to be as proactive as possible. And so that's kind of what brought us to the decision to move programming, is so that we could continue to provide services in as contiguous of a fashion as possible.
Yep, Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Thank you. Before we venture too far off away from the buckets, we kind of glossed over, we mentioned it, but at a very high level, that there's an abandoned boiler.
Yes.
Many of us in the room may not even know what a boiler is, let alone the environmental risks that are included in that, whether or not it's been properly disconnected, if it's abandoned, and what condition is it in, and what other environmental hazards does an abandoned boiler in a basement that we cannot access pose?
That's a great question that I actually can't answer because it's been abandoned for so long, it was sealed off, and we don't even allow our staff to access those spaces. And so those are some of the questions that we actually want to try to get some answers to. Sorry, go ahead.
Follow up if I may. So we could have potentially, if the boiler was not properly disconnected and shut down, we could have a liability under that building right now and not know.
Yes.
The reason why I'm asking is understanding the amount of oil that is involved in a boiler and not knowing like where, if mitigating the unknown factors and what is not only the risks that we see that are here, but also what are some of the things that we may not know, because again, we're talking about a piece of equipment that most people walking around right now don't even know what a boiler is.
Correct. And so that actually leads into kind of the next, sorry. Did you have another question? Sorry.
No, I was going to ask actually if you can clarify, because I think you were giving the timeline. Can you share, just clarify also for our listening public, of the timeline in terms of the different facilities assessments that we've done? Because you mentioned the 2011, 2012.
Yeah, so there was one done in 2011, 2012. The last one was completed in 2024. And so it was completed last year. And as we dug into that and our facilities team really took time to understand what was ahead of us, and as we understood the impacts that that would have on the facility and the resources that we had at hand, that was when we needed to make that decision.
Great. And just to clarify, because I know we've gotten questions about this, that report is available for public consumption.
Yes, it is. And it's also linked in the memo for tonight's packet.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. So that leads us to kind of what the recommendation is for the next steps. As Councilmember Nueva Camina alluded to, there are things that are known in this facility and there are things that are unknown. And so the next step is that we are working with our Public Works team to bring a structural engineer on to do a full assessment of the facility to understand and dig a little bit deeper. The rapid visual assessment that happens in a facilities condition assessment is not unlike what you have when you have your house inspected, when you sell or buy. They come in, they take a look, they see various things, and they say, well, you have water pooling over here. That could be new, that could be old, that could be, a leak. It could be an ice cube melted. We know with the age of this facility and the ongoing issues that we've had that it is not likely an ice cube has melted, but far more likely to be really significant issues because of the age of the facility and because of the consistency of reports that we've had. And so we'll be bringing in an engineer to do a full structural assessment to understand at an even deeper level what we really have ahead of us. We'll also be handing off the good faith inspection, which is the hazardous materials inspection, so that they can truth it out against current codes to understand if anything has changed. We have not done significant abatement in the facility, so we don't anticipate that there's much new or changed in that, but we do want to make sure that we are still using the most current information as to hazardous materials. And then we can also look at the space use of that facility. Again, it's about 8,600 square feet, so it is on the smaller side. The next step of that would be that we would come back to City Council. My goal is this summer, I have some time in a July study session to come and report on the results to the City Council and community to help us all understand where we sit as it comes to this facility. Again, no determination has been made to the future of the facility or the property. That's a decision that needs to be done through this public process. And so we'll bring those results here so that we can have a conversation about what they're telling us, what they're not telling us, and what options are in front of us. After that, we would turn around and engage with the community on the options moving forward, not unlike what we did with the senior center. When we brought those results back, we were able to turn around to the community and say, these are the options ahead of us. These are some of the cost estimates that these would take and the resources and allocations that they would require, or the shifting of priorities that would require at the city level, so that we can make fully informed decisions moving forward. At that point, one of the questions that has come to me a few different times, and I want to make sure that is very clear, is that the goal through that engagement process is to center teen voice, to center youth voice, to center community voice. We have to remember that we're building for now, but we're building for the future as well. And so as we're looking towards the future teens of the city, we also want to make sure that we're looking to make sure we're serving in the correct location with the correct services and the correct structure that's going to really help serve us now, but also into the future, so that we can make sure that we're able to be nimble and serve our community for the next 50 to 100 years in whatever it is that we are going to be doing that in. And so those are going to be the opportunities that we have with the community to have two-way conversations, to engage, and to really understand what this needs to look like moving forward. And so it'll help us, though, to have that those assessments and reports and findings so that we can share them with the public as we have these conversations, so that we're all kind of moving forward on the same information. With that, I would be happy to take any questions, but that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Director Hamilton. Council, questions? Councilmember Fields. Yes, and I will, I will note that Councilmember Salahuddin has joined us online. Councilmember Fields, go ahead.
Thank you. So I want to get underneath some of the words that we're using here a bit and make sure that the council and the public understand. When you say you haven't made a decision, sure, we've not made decisions, but we've set directions. And one of the things, it's not clear to me why we closed the firehouse when we did. I get it that there are problems with an old building. We've known that for some time. We knew that about the senior center as well. And it wasn't until it was uninhabitable because of dry rot and the potential of the roof falling in on people that we actually moved out. So I'm not clear on why the decision was made to close abruptly unless there was some sort of trajectory or path that we're on. So I think moving beyond the word, we haven't made decision is important. The other part of that is you are investing in one of the primary values to the teens, and that's the recording. And you're potentially investing somewhere else, which also sounds like a decision to me that we would not return to the idea of mitigating the problems with the current building and restoring that as the teen center made whole through whatever we would do. So I think it needs to be clear that we not only have not made decisions, but we're not on a path towards something excluding an opportunity to restore that.
Yes, I hear, oh, whoa.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
That went hot, man. I'm going to sit way back here now. So that's a great line of questioning and thoughts. So I would like to absolutely address a couple of things. One, why close it now? And in that same statement, what you said is we did not move out of the senior center until it was uninhabitable. And so it's, as I looked at the information in front of me, spoke with my facilities experts, understood the efforts it was taking us to keep it safe and habitable, I realized that we hit a nexus, we hit a point where we could not safely maintain the facility in the way that I felt as the Parks Director comfortable in having it inhabited and safely used, because the needs of that facility became great enough that it began to tip the scales of our capacity, both from a staffing perspective and a resource perspective. So that's why we closed it when we did. The next part of your question was, did we not already make a decision by investing elsewhere? And I can understand that because we've heard that question, and my response is no. Because I'm not going to move programs or services and just say, well, I guess we're just not going to do anything. Because that would be stating that we don't value our teens, that we don't value our youth, that we don't value those programs and services, which is an inaccurate statement. And what we want to be able to do is provide space, provide the services, provide the programs in a way that they can be utilized while these disruptive things are going to be happening into the building. Because as we look at the structure, as we look at the abatement, as we look at all of these things, there will be disruption to these hazardous materials within the facility. There will be disruption to the space that we cannot, in good conscience, operate the facility with minors or anyone for that matter in that space. I cannot guarantee safety as we do that process. And so it's really important to me that we do this process right, that we do it once, and we do it safely. And so it's important to me then that we invest into these other spaces so that there is somewhere, and that we're not doing it as what happened with the senior center, which was one day. One day we were in there and one day we were out. This was maybe 3 weeks. I understand that's still abrupt and it's still quick, but it was, in my estimation, a lot better than waiting for the one day when the building failed.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yes.
So when I go to the dentist and they do that gum thing and they measure your gums and they go, yeah, right? I never know if 2 and 3 is bad. I know that 6 or 5 is bad. I've been told that. And you told us what 1 was, and you told us what 5 was. What's 3? Is that horrible? Is that medium? How does that compare to the MOC? How does that compare to other buildings? And as along with that question, when we say it's not up to code, we probably have other facilities that are not up to code, but it's, you know, sort of grandfathered in until we actually make permitted changes. So
Correct.
can you give us a sense of that? And then I have one more follow-up question after that.
Yes, so Quinn is online, my facilities manager. Quinn, do you know off the top of your head what all the numbers are? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what they stand for?
Yeah, thanks, Council. It's in the report that we've attached, the facilities condition assessment. There's 2 different sets of scores, so that it does get confusing. The 1 to 5, it's listed in that report that Mang put together, and they. I was just trying to look through the report to share what those terms were, and so. They have an FCI. There's 2 different sets of scores, so it's I think we've got to be clear as to what scores we're talking about on these. Apologize, I'm just trying to look through this.
I can follow up with you, Council, on what the 1,
Yeah,
2, 3, 4, 5, but where you really want to be is kind of in that 1 to 3 range. When you get into that 3 and into 4, 5 range, you're really hitting that poor facility condition assessment range. So again, and then like Quinn was just kind of alluding to, there's multiple numbers. The facility condition index, which is really what we're looking at, does put us into the poor range. There's only one range worse. So we're pretty far down that. How it compares to other facilities, there are other facilities within our system that have some difficult scores. This facility scores far lower in its kind of replacement value ratio repairs. And Quinn, I see your hand.
I think I found it, and it's under the weighted condition score for each subsystem. So 1 being excellent and 5 being failed. 2 is good, 3 is fair, and 4 is poor. So excellent, good, fair, poor, failed.
Thank you.
And then I think the other piece of your question is, yes, there are other facilities that absolutely have pieces that are out of code that are maybe not ADA compliant. What makes this particular building so unique is that because there's so many compiled issues and then adding on the significant amount of hazardous materials within that facility, is that to do any one of these items is not simply replacing a window. It's not simply like when we have to replace a window because it's broken, we have to abate that window because all of the caulk and all of the paint has asbestos or lead paint in it. So it's the compounding of all of the issues within the facility that make it so unique. It's not that any one of the issues on its own are any different than what exists in other facilities, like you mentioned the MOC, but because of the age and the types of materials that were used to build this facility, because of the time in which it was built. Those are the compounding factors that make it less safe than those other facilities that you are mentioning, if that makes sense.
Thank you. And Councilmember Fields, I know you said you had a follow-up question. If it's very quick, I'll allow it. Otherwise, I do want to make the chance that everyone gets to ask a first question before we do a second round.
Yeah, I can do second round.
Great. Other questions from the council? Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. So what we're looking at today and what you're hoping to get out of us is to proceed with the assessment. Is that correct?
We are proceeding with the assessment. So this is already in motion because in order for any of us to make for me to bring a recommendation forward, for us to properly engage with the community, or for you to have the information that would be necessary to make the large decisions in front of us about the future of this facility, the property, the future of this work, would need that information. So we have already started to work to contract
And that was the impetus for closing? Part
Yes,
of the impetus?
yes.
Because that work cannot be done.
The disturbance that it would cause would not allow us to maintain a safe environment for our services.
Okay. With that report, I'm hopeful and assuming that we will get a worst case, best case scenario.
Yep.
And that we would have a ballpark estimate of full demo versus full repair. Is that a fair
Yes.
generalization question? Because I know a lot of the comments we've received and a lot of the reading that I've done on the McKinstry report over the many years, we look at that number, it's like a $5 million-ish number.
Doesn't seem bad.
It doesn't seem bad. And even if we aggregate that out and say, okay, well, that's just what we can see, and if that were to, multiply and become a $20 million number, and having just gone through the Redmond Senior and Community Center process, that's still a fraction of what the replacement cost was to rebuild that property. So I think that's a big concern that we're hearing from folks, is the $5 million number and then what that could then look like. So I look forward to seeing what this assessment brings us in terms of best case, worst case, full demo, full repair. And, as far as the location, I think we've heard from a lot of our community that this is a prime location because it's walkable for a lot of the students. And I tend to, my personal opinion is to want to save that building because it has such a history and it has such meaning to our community. So I really look forward to seeing what those numbers come back at, and I'll save the rest of my comments.
Councilmember Stewart.
Well, thank you, Director Hamilton, and to everyone in the room who's been a part of the conversation and came to listen tonight while the council got to have its first conversation on this topic. Director Hamilton, we've known and we've heard really clearly that this has been really hard for everyone affected, and that includes you and your team. So you've laid out for all of us tonight some of the really tough stuff going on here. And as a parent, I take it even further to heart. I just want to make sure that we're all clear on next steps, and there's a couple of details. So the next step, and then you said it's already in the works, is working with our partners in Public Works to bring on a structural engineer. My question was, do we have that structural engineer on our Public Works team already, or they're helping us get one in?
No, we use consulting groups because they're able to do the structural piece, but they'll also be able to truth out some of the other pieces and look at things like the cost estimating, or at least subcontract that out. So that was the process that we went through for the senior center as well. We brought in was it KPG? We brought on KPG. At this time, it sounds like KPG may not have who we need, but so we're looking at another rostered consultant that we've used in the past.
Okay, wonderful. And then you mentioned that the good faith inspection, I just want to clarify that that is the same as the hazardous materials
Correct.
assessment?
Yes.
And you said that that would be handed off. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
Yeah, so as part of that work, we're going to ask them to take the information we have, so the facilities condition assessment, as well as the good faith or hazmat inspection, and ensure that that information is kind of as current as it can be. So as they're going through the facility, looking more deeply, if they find another area of hazardous material that we weren't aware of, which we don't think that that's the case because that was an incredibly thorough inspection, or if perhaps codes have changed around what are allowable amounts or allowable hazardous materials, we would look to them to then say, you should either redo this or no, this is sufficient. We find this to be the correct, this inspection is up to date. So we just want to make sure that we truth that out as we go through this process so that we have a full understanding of hazardous materials as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate your team's work to try to maintain programs as we go through this process. I look forward to returning in July or thereabouts with all of the information so that we can have that discussion with community. And thank you also for your attention to youth voice. We built the park plan and the comprehensive plan with community, and that was just a central theme of that work. So this is a great opportunity for us to make sure we are practicing that. So thank you for your time tonight. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Councilmember Nueva Camina?
Thank you. Comment and then a question. There's been a lot of change in our community, and most recently, many of us have been dealt with various levels of loss, whether that's loss of people, loss of buildings, loss of jobs. In the last recent months, there's been a lot of loss. So it reminds me that the only thing that is really, that we can truly count on is two things. Number one is change. We can always count on change. Number two is that what we have is the right now. We've got the people right now that are at this table. We have the people that are right now in the room. And the identity of our community lies in the power of the right now and the people that are right now. And let me be clear that our identity as a community does not lie in buildings. I'll say that one more time. Our identity as a community does not lie in buildings. So the strength and the spirit that made Old Firehouse what it was not a building. It was the intention that was behind it. And even when we have to make hard decisions that is going to create another sense of loss to some degree, I think that it's very important that as a community, we refocus on what it is that our identity actually is, and that it's not a building. It's the way that we connect, it's the intentionality, it's making sure that we center voices, particular voices that are going to be the most impacted. So I echo Councilmember Stewart in being excited about living out our park plan, living out our comprehensive plan, making sure that there are voices at the table, both here and in the future, about how that's going to shape the decision, and also reminding all of us, whether that's those listening in, those that are in the room, or those that are at the table, that our community's identity is not in a building. So even if, worst case scenario, the building does change, the importance is that your voice is here and that your voice is centered. So the question is then timeline for the next steps and community voices being involved. At what point does the community have more say? I know that we've got a listening session coming up. So I just want to confirm the date of that. And once the assessment is done, then how do we get that information out to folks?
That's a great question. So there's kind of two pieces to that question that you just asked. So there are listening sessions and engagement happening right now. The goal of the engagement and listening session right now, is a question and has been a question that we have wanted to really push out, and that is, what do teens need, where do they need it, and how do they get it? And that includes the city, but it also includes other service providers throughout the city. And so, as you all know, the city of Redmond has changed pretty significantly in the many years that it has been. I came to the city 5.5 years ago, and it looks very different than when I started as a staff member 5.5 years ago. One of the things that was done back in 2018 was a community centers stakeholder group work that was talking about the future of community centers in Redmond. And one of the things that it identified was that the community told us through a large engagement process, and if you haven't seen that report or haven't seen it in a while, I'd be happy to send it on. What it said was the city of Redmond did not want a mega community center or only large community centers or community spaces in the downtown core, because that was one of the proposals, was a mega community center in downtown Redmond. What it wanted was smaller, centrally located community centers in each urban center. And so that's Overlake, Marymore Village, and the downtown core. And so one of the things that we have really been trying to do is understand, how do we serve our community, particularly communities like our seniors or our teens that have had kind of these specialized spaces. How do we serve them throughout our community? What do they need and where do they need it? Because we do have teens in Overlake. And while the Old Firehouse Teen Center is very accessible for our friends in the downtown core, it is not as accessible for those in Marymore Village or in Overlake. And so we want to make sure that we're understanding, where do you need it and how do you need it? And that way we can provide community spaces throughout the city in line with that plan. That is what that conversation is. That conversation actually isn't really making a decision about any particular building or facility. It's saying, what do all the teens within Redmond need and where do they need it? The first listening session for that is April 28th. And then the second one, I actually believe, is May 28th. So we did that to make it easy, April 28th and May 28th. They are at the Redmond Community Center at Marymore Village. And in those times, that is the questions that we're interfacing with. The question I think that you're asking, Councilmember Nueva Camina, is in particular to how are we having community engagement around the facility itself. That engagement process will come after we come to City Council in July and say, this is what we learned. We learned these things about the facility. These are the cost estimates that we have, and these are the options that we kind of have moving forward. After that point, so I would imagine towards the fall, we would then turn around and do a different, separate community engagement process around the future of the facility, which will also integrate the findings of what do teens need and where do they need it that we learned over the summer. So it will kind of dovetail in, but we're having two different sets of listening sessions around that, because this second one is going to be a very different conversation around the future of the facility.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question, Councilmember? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Director.
Thank you. I will do a quick follow-up on that, which I do really appreciate the thoughtfulness of kind of thinking about what are all the different types of services and needs that we might have for teens. I think given there's so much conversation in our community right now and there's so much interest in being able to share about the importance of this building, I mentioned this when we were approving the contract for the consultants, that we'd miss an opportunity right now to be able to ask the question for people to share with us about this building specifically and about this site, which obviously we're already getting some good feedback on this. You know, we're hearing from, we're hearing about the importance of the actual built environment, that space itself, that location itself, what it means to people. And we probably will want to do more engagement, but I guess a question is there a way for us to be able to also kind of capture that and make sure that that those who are in our community know that we're listening to that and we're planning to attend to it, because saying we'll deal with this in 6 months, I think may not land. And I think what we've heard from our community is that so far some of the messaging and communication that we've done so far has missed the mark. So, and I know we're trying really hard to hit on it. So.
Yeah, so I think my response to that would be, we are responding to it in real time. When we get feedback, we are responding to it in real time. We're capturing it, we're aggregating it. That will be data that we use moving forward. As comments come in through any of the questionnaires that are surrounding the building, that information will help inform us moving forward. And we are not in a place right now where we can even provide enough information to have a really helpful conversation around the future of the facility, because we don't have the full information to share around the options that we have moving forward, if that makes sense. So we absolutely are bringing in the comments. We absolutely are. If people reach out to me or my staff and ask for conversations, we are sitting and having coffee. We are responding. We are writing emails. We're picking up the phone. We're doing all of those things. If there are ways that we are not, if there's information that's not being shared that needs to be shared, I would welcome that. As we've gotten that feedback, we've tried to shift and pivot and give the correct information where we're able to. And so I would welcome any helpful feedback on how we can continue to improve those methods. But while we want to make sure we're bringing in that feedback around the passion around the facility, I also really want to make sure that we're not losing sight of getting those other questions answered. And so we're going to continue to focus on that. Also bringing in, knowing that this information is coming in about the building, continuing to aggregate that as information, but also knowing that we'll have those deep conversations when we're able to say, and this is the full menu of options that we have moving forward to make a decision.
That makes sense. And I will say that I think it does make sense to be able to ask the questions about the services and the needs, so that as we're figuring out how to deal with these really real difficult conditions with the building, that we also can continue to provide the supportive services our teens need. One thing that I've heard a lot is they need safe spaces. And I guess if you can answer this just quickly, then I'll do the second round. Can you share a little bit about how, you mentioned some of the things that you're doing with some of our other facilities right now to be able to meet some of the needs that were served at the Old Firehouse Teen Center while we're in this interim time. We've heard some concerns of just not feeling as safe in the RCCMV just because of a variety of factors, and what we can do to make the teens feel like they kind of have that safe feeling.
Absolutely. So, and I would be happy to walk RCCMV with any council member, teen, community member that would like to see it. And so what happens is when you walk into the Redmond Community Center at Marymore Village, through the main entrance on the left is a front desk situation. If you continue walking past the elevator and hang a right is the teen drop-in space. Teens are able to walk into the facility. They don't need to check in at the front desk if they don't want to. They can go straight into the teen drop-in center and check in there with the teen staff. Teen staff are always in there. We have supplementals as well as full-time staff in there, similar to how we have it at the Old Firehouse Teen Center. And similar, exactly like the Old Firehouse Teen Center. If it is not a teen who is willing to, say hi and make themselves known, adults are not welcome in those spaces during teen drop-in hours unless they are a cleared volunteer or staff member. That is the current situation at the Old Firehouse Teen Center, and that is how we continue to commit to our CCMV. We also, I know that my staff just had a meeting this week to continue to figure out how to ensure that we're having really meaningful ways of trying to co-create that space. One of the pieces of feedback that we have gotten is it is sterile, it is boring, it's lame, all of the things. I get it. It is a relative blank slate at this point. New furniture is being installed next week. Painting is finishing this week. And at that point, the hope is that staff will work with teens to understand what are the things then that will make this comfortable? What are the things that will make this your space? We may not be able to do all of them because it is a it is a city-owned facility. Actually, it's not a city-owned facility. It's a leased facility at this point. And so we can't, do all of the things that one may hope we could do. And yet there is quite a lot that we could do with art, with experiences, with different spaces to make it feel as more of a comfortable space. And so those are things that we're really working to figure out how to do. And so we want to make sure that it continues to feel safe and habitable. And as teens continue to interact with that space, I would encourage all of them to let our staff know what is working, what is not working, and so we can pivot as much as possible.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Fields, round two.
Round two. So just real quickly, my personal memories of the teen center was when my son was in junior high, and him and some friends were part of the Battle of the Bands. And when they played The Clash, I was astounded. That's one of my favorite bands of all time, and the fact that young people knew who The Clash were was remarkable to me. Also, when I ran for mayor against Mayor Bernie, we had a debate at the Teen Center, and that was actually the best part of that campaign because they were so welcoming, they were so nice. They brought us water, lemonade, whatever we wanted. Asked us what our favorite book was. Coincidentally, we both had the same favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird. That was kind of surprising, but cool. And the reason I bring that up is because, for me, I'm not a teen, should be clear. But
That wasn't clear, so I really appreciate the clarity.
Councilmember Fields, I will just say, as a point of order, I would ask that you don't reference electoral politics during our council meetings. Thank you.
former election. So I think I get what Councilmember Nueva Camina said, that we are not buildings. We can rely on ourselves. But buildings can become symbols of who we are and a history. And I think the Teen Center is one of those. And I'm with Councilmember Forsyth. My preference and desire is hopefully that we will find a way to retain that building and maintain it for future generations. The question I'm going to ask, I've asked before. It's also been asked a number of times in public testimony. And I would ask you not to be offended by the question, because the question's been asked, and I hope that the mayor is not offended either. But I committed to myself to ask this question. If we've not made decisions, and if we're open to all possibilities, can you assure the public, because there is some skepticism, that we have already made a direction, that we have potentially developers in the wings who want that property? Can you assure us from the mayor's office that there is no behind the scenes, behind closed doors discussions or potential plans to use that facility for something already predetermined?
You're asking me?
I'm asking the mayor's office.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Mayor Bernie.
Happy to answer that question. No, the decision was made to close the facility due to all the reasons that Director Hamilton expressed. And if there are developers who are interested in the property, there probably are, because all of the properties in Redmond are of interest to developers if they're undeveloped or have buildings on them already. But there is nothing in the works or anything. I'm trying to understand what you're insinuating, but there is nothing in the works. The decision was made to move as we have discussed, and as we have shared with council as well, the decision was made due to the safety of the building. And whatever decision is made after that will be what we decide. But
Mayor,
nothing has been decided. Nothing has been decided except for the things we have discussed tonight about moving the programs and doing the continued work on the building to understand the challenges with it.
Mayor, I'm not insinuating anything. I'm replicating concerns that have been expressed to me privately and what we've seen in public. And the question I'm asking, it's not an insinuation, it's a question. Have there been any discussions in the mayor's office with potential other use for this building for private enterprise or private parties? And if the answer is no, great. But I'm just looking for you to reassure the public that there is nothing behind the scenes.
As I have said, there is nothing else other than moving the programs, and there is no other things in the work behind the scenes. This was purely a safety decision.
Thank you.
Thank you both for clarifying that, since we have heard quite a bit of testimony of concern on that. So I'm glad that we could clear that up. Also, just for the public to know in terms of how council works, is that due to the Open Public Meetings Act, we can't actually discuss this topic unless it's in a publicly accessible televised meeting. So there won't be any sort of backdoor discussions going on. We're going to have them right here in this chambers. You can always come and sit and watch us, or you can watch it online. They'll be televised, they'll be recorded. You can watch them later. And all the discussions will be happening that way amongst the council, and the council ultimately will make the decision on the budgeting for any sort of facility and what happens with this facility. Whereas the actual programming and running of the programs, the administering of our Parks Department is with our administration, and that's why we've seen some of the action so far. And that's why this is really our first council discussion on this. So I just wanted to clarify that in terms of the transparency, and that transparency is a huge value of this council, and we'll continue to have very transparent discussions on this. Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. Just a few data points I would love to get some more information on. You mentioned in your presentation that there are 122 unique visitors. Interested in the daily user visitors. I don't know if you have that information, because it sounds like you don't necessarily track everybody who's coming in and going, but I'd be interested in the data that you have from the Old Firehouse Teen Center and the new facilities as they get, programs get picked up again and things are kind of back on track.
Yes, we do have that information. I can send that out to council.
That'd be great. And then you mentioned the recording facility. You're trying to stand that up in the Mary Moore Center. At first, you had mentioned to us that was going to be purely acoustic. Are those pieces of equipment going to be moved so it will be electric as well for the recording?
Yeah, I don't recall saying it was going to be fully acoustic. I think last time we talked about it, we actually hadn't made a full decision, but we are going to be building it out so that teens can record. It may not be as robust as what it is at OFH right now, because that would require really significant changes to the facility, which may indicate long-term decisions have been made, which have not been made. So we don't want to move walls. We don't want to change the structure of the facility, because we actually don't know what the future of this particular program looks like. So we're using the kind of largest room that we can, and we have an acoustical engineer coming in to build that out. So I can get more information on exactly what that looks like, but it's kind of not as big as what we have right now, but it is not nothing either. It's kind of a middle of the road.
Definitely interested in more details on
Yep.
that as you have them. And then looking at the planned timeline and schedule of events that you're planning to have these community conversations, I notice a lack of events that are LGBTQIA focused. And I know a lot of our community and those in the room, that is a big networking area that I think we're missing out on that opportunity. I don't know how many of our teens are going to some of these festivals that are on here, like Veg Fest and United Fest, but I would love to see us partnering with some organizations that focus on the queer community as well.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? I will just jump in for a quick second before we wrap up here to note that in addition to these, the listening sessions that the Parks team and the facilitator will be planning, which I think we'll hopefully have a couple council members join for each of those. We're also in discussions with the mayor and staff to be able to hopefully plan an additional time for council to have a special meeting to do more of a listening session with our teens on this topic as well as a group. But I know also, hopefully we'll, at council talk time, we can work out the details of who will be able to join on the 2 different dates that are already scheduled. But just want for those who are listening to know that we are also going to be looking at even more opportunities to be able to engage and be able to gather feedback directly and have a dialogue. I know we did get a request via email from a couple folks to be able to have folks come to the table tonight for this study session, and we weren't able to do that, but we do want to make sure that we have an opportunity to have a dialogue on this as we make these decisions going forward. And we do need some more information. I will just echo what some of my colleagues had shared in terms of information I'm hoping we'll get going forward just on what kind of our different options would be, and in particular on restoring the building or what it would look like. What are kind of the different options there? Because I think from my perspective, I think the current location and that built environment does seem like it holds a really important place for so many people. And we've heard that our community wants to rally around this project. So I'm interested to be able to hear more about what our options are, even though we want to look at the full scale of options and make the best decision to ensure we have a safe space for our teens. Any other comments or questions? All right. Will you want to wrap up on anything here?
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for coming and listening this evening. And as we move forward, we will continue to bring information forward and dialogue to ensure that we have the best future for our community as possible.
Thank you so much.
Can you plug the dates again?
Sorry?
Can you plug the dates of the future conversations again?
Yeah, the dates of the future conversations are April 28th and May 28th. Can you remind us where those are?
Deputy Director Zach Hoovener, can you give the full details of those 2 listening sessions?
Yes, I can. So the first one will be Monday, April 28th at 5:30 p.m. at Redmond Community Center at Marymore Village. And then the second one will be on May 28th at the Redmond Senior and Community Center from 6 to 8 p.m.
Great.
Thank
And
you,
you'll
Zach.
also be doing engagements, from what I understand, in terms of outreach and involvement. You also have upcoming planned engagements that are in smaller groups.
Yes, there are, and we're also working with the high school to come to various high school events as well so that we can make sure that we're capturing as much voice as possible.
Great. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I have a question about that. Are you reaching out to the Bellevue School District, since Interlake pulls from Redmond as well, and there's a middle school that also pulls from Redmond?
Zach?
Yes, I believe we've reached out to both the Bellevue School District and the Lake Washington School District, but look, I will triple check that tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will just note for everyone who's listening too, if you go on our city's website and look for the information for this meeting and click into it, there's a list in the 3rd attachment of all of the kind of planned different events at which our park staff will be out going into community to engage. So you don't have to go to just that big listening session. You can go talk to someone at a table. There's even actually this Friday, we're going to have a Anderson Park planting event for Arbor Day, and we'll have our park staff there. So feel free to come join and plant a tree and talk about the Teen Center. So it'll be great. All right, well, thank you so much, Director Hamilton, for your hard work and to all of your team's work as well. And with that, we'll close out this item and move on to the next item on our agenda. The next item on the agenda is the Capital Investment Program Project Updates Q1 2025. I'll give the audience a moment to head off for those who don't want to stay to listen about our capital investments or our future climate resiliency, which is the last item on our agenda. But thank you all for coming to listen, and we look forward to seeing you back in chambers again soon. We have Aaron Burt here, who's our Public Works Director, who will introduce this item. Go ahead, Director Burt.
I will. Thank you, Council President. Council members, Aaron Burt, Public Works Director. Tonight I'm joined by Tess Wilkinson, our CIP planner, and Steve Gibbs, Capital Program Manager. We're off and running in the first quarter. A lot of good things to report on. We provided you with an overview of the current status, a one-page sheet showing all the projects and where we're at on that, and then also a response to your council questions in a matrix format. So we'll go through the presentation and then be happy to take any questions that you have. Tess, Steve?
Thank you. Thank you for having us in here tonight. I'm rather sorry we don't have a larger audience. I thought that they would want to hear this. Let's see. Trying to get this to move forward. It does not want to. Yeah, I should be presenting in Teams. There we go. There we go, much better. Sorry about that, some technical difficulties. So here you'll see the table that we like to present you, how many active projects we have going on. Currently 36 in Q1, holding pretty steady, moving into Q2. We have completed 2 of their 18 targeted for completion projects. Those would be the 10,000 block of Avondale erosion, as well as our EV charging projects. Looking forward into Q2, I expect that we will get about another 5 of those complete by the mid-year point. Speaking of completed projects, on this table here, you can see what we have completed, those first two, and then what is upcoming. Our PPE management projects are at various fire stations throughout the city and are wrapping up this month, as well as the control and telemetry project at our water stations. So just as a quick reminder to everybody, when you see our featured projects, you will see some of these green, yellow, and red indicators, and this is what they are, what they mean. So moving on to our general government portfolio program report. The projects within the general government portfolio contain not just sustainability and climate pledge projects such as our EV vehicle charging stations, sustainability, building automation, and LED lighting. These projects also help with maintenance and operation needs within the 26 facilities around the city. And this quarter, we have chosen our facilities ADA project to be our featured project, and Steve is going to give you some more information on that one.
Thank you, Council. We brought this item before a couple of times, but this is one of the projects that's addressing a kind of a massive ADA compliance report that's a few years old, and I think it generated like about 1,400 items that needed to be addressed in the various buildings. So the project team kind of took a look at the massive amount of items and the stations and prioritized basically the public-facing facilities, and they're listed there on the side. There's City Hall, Public Safety Building, Fire Station 11, the public, or the parking garage, and then RCC MV. And we're probably going to take the first year and develop a construction project through design, and then in the outer years, we'll probably target 2 construction projects to kind of knock off the many of those 1,400 items as we can within that 5-year. It's getting funded about $300K a year.
Steve, in this context, can you give the council a purview of kind of what type of projects we're looking at with this funding amount?
Sure. So of the 5 buildings, we're going to go in and we'll be looking at, handrail heights, position of soap dispensers, just a variety, widths of stalls, slopes of the floor, and make sure they're all ADA compliant, and trying to package those together in a logical group and attack them that way.
All right, here we have our parks program. Well, the current number of active park projects in the parks portfolio, they may look small. The projects within this portfolio have a very large impact within the community. This summer, residents are going to see construction crews out replacing the field turf at Grasslawn Park and Hartman Park. And this Thursday, we have a bid opening for our Reservoir Park Sports Court replacement project. When we met with you at 2PW, you asked for information on the East Rail project. We will be providing that at this report, as well as an update on the Redmond Central Connector Phase 3 project, all the way on the other side of the connecting trail.
Yeah, so just quickly starting with the East Trail project. This is basically at the connecting our existing Redmond Central Connector in the vicinity of the downtown stations, and then Sound Transit constructed this moving, I guess you'd call it eastward, toward the across Bear Creek, which is a King County PED bridge that they've connected or constructed, and then through the off-ramps at SR 520, and then that'll connect to the East Sammamish Trail with King County, and also connecting some of the other side trails along the way, Bear Creek Trail, and there's another trail parallel to the 520 ramps. And so this is basically ready to open with the light rail. And just a reminder, the city did contribute about $1.6 million in partnership with Sound Transit to get this stuff constructed. And then on the Redmond Central Connector, which is at the other end, and both of these trail are kind of like the final connections to major regional trails toward Issaquah, and then also the Redmond Central Connector would connect with Woodinville and Kirkland. I just talked to the project manager before the meeting, and we've got our final paving on RCC 3 was put down today. And so following that, we'll be dressing the shoulders with some rock, and we'll be finishing up some of the concrete. And then we're probably going to shut down for about 2 weeks because we're waiting for the signal and light poles to come in, expected to come in at mid-June. And then the contractor will remobilize for a couple more weeks to wrap things up, get the poles up, and do the final touches. And we hope to have this thing ready for traffic in July. I'm being very bold.
We like it when he's bold and gives us challenges. So our traffic operations portfolio is currently dominated by paving projects, and I am sorry to announce that the traffic cone season will be upon us soon. So many of our paving projects, we try to include utility work as needed in here because replacing lines, water, sewer, and stormwater pipes, along with the paving, it reduces the impact on our residents and also saves on project costs. Later this year, the Traffic Operations Group, they will begin work on a number of pedestrian and bicycle safety improvement projects. You'll see those listed on an upcoming slide within this report. And these projects will be added to this portfolio as they are initiated. Our featured traffic operations project this quarter is the Westlake Sammamish paving project.
Yes, so this actually got started last year. By the time we got our, this is a federal aid project, and by the time we got our washed-out approval, we had missed the construction season. So it's basically been in shutdown. The paving window opens up in May, and they'll be hitting this one pretty fast and furious, and hope to get the grinding operation started probably by the end of May, and then paving shortly thereafter. The tricky part about this thing is that you've got limited access, washed-out limited access at kind of in the middle of the project and at the north end of the project, and they're requiring us to do night work for that. There are some apartments that are adjacent, and so we're going to try and work with the contractor to limit the noisiest part of that work, which would be the grinding, to the early evening when they get started. Generally, and when they're doing a night shift, they'll probably get started around 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening and get that noisy work done before midnight would be the goal. And then we realize that the noise is going to travel up the hill, and so our communication plan will be kind of a wider, probably path than normal, and get some mailers out in advance to let folks know the upcoming work. But it'll be about 2 months of disturbance.
Mayor Bird.
I saw that Council Vice President had a question too, but can you share a little more about the paving window? Because I know I've heard it before, but I guess I've never asked the question. Because like today was a beautiful day, so why is there a paving window between what May and September or something?
So our construction contracts are based off the washed-out center specifications, and they have a kind of a you can't pave in this time frame is their standard. And then we can, if the weather is exceptional like today, we can make an exception. But because it's in washed-out right-of-way, in this case, they kind of hold all the cards, and so we have to follow their. And they just don't allow paving in their limited access outside that window.
Thank you. I will just underscore, I appreciate the thinking about the timing, because I may have gotten calls from people when there was construction going on at what should be quiet hours outside of their residences. So I think being aware of that, given how big this project is.
Yeah, definitely a challenging area to pave at any time, but definitely less traffic at night we're going to get much more production and overall less impact to the public.
Yeah, but yeah, if you can let the neighbors know more about the amount of time they could expect for any sort of disturbance and kind of those limits, I think it'd be helpful.
Council President?
Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. I definitely appreciate the explanation about WashDOT and the restrictions there. What are we doing to communicate with Sammamish residents, since this is a major throughway?
Well, we can work with the communication team and push out something to Sammamish.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I guess since we're taking questions on this particular project, I wanted to ask if this is addressing the significant pothole issues at the intersection there that have been there for a minute.
I was expecting this question, and we're getting most of it. So it is not going across the intersection, because the 154 section is just as bad, and that's another project that's in the queue.
I see. So we'll take care of what we can on this side.
Yes.
All right. And then, I guess I would be curious if the concrete crew can also be helpful. But I understand you're saying there's like a systemic, another major project. Just in terms of communication, I think folks understand when the things that they wanted solved for years get solved. And those potholes are something we've heard about for years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you can see the multiple patches.
Yeah, thanks.
Well.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? I don't want to miss any. I was distracted looking at the maps. All right, why don't you go ahead?
All right, thank you. So the second part of our overall transportation program is the transportation planning portfolio. This portfolio is progressing nicely. We are wrapping up work on the sidewalk repairs at Northeast 40th Street and the Bell Red buffered bike lanes, as well as the sidewalk repairs on 166 and Avondale Way, will be going out for advertisement shortly. The featured project from this portfolio this quarter is the Northeast Shared Use Path.
Yeah, and so this is basically the second phase of that shared use path. We completed the first phase about a year and a half ago on the north side of Microsoft from 156 to 163rd. And I think we'll continue that type of path. It's a kind of a meandering to, one, avoid significant trees, and then other to any existing utility vaults or structures that might be on that side of the road. We'll also look at any opportunities where we can maybe narrow the lanes or take some of the asphalt to use the pathway as we approach Bell Red and then cross Bell Red down to 172nd. Yeah, and I think that's about what I have on that. We're just getting ready to go out to advertise for consultants on that one.
Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. I very much remember this project because it was one of my first, the project that preceded this, because it was one of my first no votes because nobody could answer when this portion was coming to us, and it was like such a traumatic vote for me. I do see on the map that it doesn't extend all the way down to Westlake Sammamish. When is that little segment going to be added?
That's a great question. We'll get back to you on that one.
I would like to not vote no on anything else to do with this. So if you could just let me know when that additional portion is going to happen, I'd love it. Thanks.
I think you can keep going. Thanks.
Thank you. So the utilities is our largest portfolio of projects since it contains both all of water, stormwater, and our wastewater projects. Overall, the progress in this portfolio has been going pretty smoothly. Our strategy of targeted equipment upgrades within our wastewater lift station system has extended the useful life of those stations. And I do want to make a quick correction here. In the handout that you were given, the Reservoir Park water tank was listed as being in design. That project on this report you'll see here has been updated with the correct status of being advertised. Since that water tank sits underneath the Reservoir Park Sports Court, it is being done in conjunction with that project there. Our featured project, no surprise to many of you here, is going to be at the Evans Creek relocation project.
Yeah, and in your packet, you've got the issues matrix, and so when I was reviewing that, sadly, some of those items have not changed significantly. I will say on the positive side, we have obtained just all the property rights we need. We have just one outstanding property that we're going back and forth with final amount to settle that one. So that's encouraging to have that completed almost. As far as the permits with the county, I want to thank the mayor and the Director Burt for doing their best to get the county's attention. It did get them to come to the table and start the discussion. Unfortunately, the conversation is essentially the same as it was last year. We're working furiously to try and get them to, approve the flood report. Was referred as the CLOMAR in past meetings. Just to highlight kind of the trouble that we're having is that the FEMA won't finalize the CLOMAR. They're the ultimate approver of the flood study until the county writes a concurrence letter that they agree with the CLOMAR, and the county won't write that letter until FEMA approves the CLOMAR. And so that's just just an example of my frustration and I think the project team's frustration in trying to move this forward. Last year, we were mightily encouraging the county to go ahead and look at the grading permits that are ultimately what's holding this up. And they really did not want to do that until the CLOMAR was approved. And so we finally, I think mostly Director Byrd interceding, they agreed to start that review, and so that we could at least see what their comments were and try and adjust. You can see in the bullets there that we were targeting to advertise about 2 weeks ago would have been ideal. And now we're basically wasting away good construction season time as each week passes. And that's my concern about advertising this year. And really, if we advertise too late, we just won't give the contractor enough time to get really anything done before the rains come, and basically the work area adjacent to the stream is not suitable for construction equipment. So, Director Byrd, you want to add anything to that?
This has been an extremely frustrating process, as expressed. The county really hasn't come to the table and worked with us in partnership. And we've been having staff-to-staff discussions. As mentioned, the mayor has been involved in this. But it is process paralysis on the county side. And yeah, I'm throwing them under the bus and pinning the rose on them because it really is. We've had several meetings with division and department directors laying out the needs, laying out what our commitments are for this project, the money that we've put into this, the fact that we've spent thousands of dollars already on permit fees for the county and basically have gotten nothing in response for it, has been this component of frustration that almost in a way we have to choke that down because we still need action on the county's part. But we are at a point here where I believe we have to make a decision on whether or not we are going to continue to spend money on this project, and whether or not that the dollars that have been invested to this point are the best use of these capital funds. If we delay, and everything is indicating that the county will not basically issue us the permits that we need to meet this construction season, we are looking at a minimum of a 5% cost increase to wait another year. That's another $1 million for this project that we will have to come back to you, council, to ask for, which means that's a trade-off of another project to continue to fund this project that's been a decade and a half in the makings. So obviously, if you look at the functions and values of what this project could provide, there is definitely a component of a potential high environmental payoff, reduction of flooding, the allowing of property owners in that area to redevelop or take their property to the highest and best use. Creates a trail connections, you know, and it is a high priority for the RIA 8, salmon restoration. But there is a time and a cost commitment involved here that we are going to have to make that decision sometime soon. So we are going to continue to press the county for action on this, and we are doing a little bit of a staff analysis right now to truly figure out what would be our drop dead date to get this out to bid this year to make it worthwhile for us to say it can go forward. So more to follow on that, but happy to answer any questions.
Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thanks. So this project actually predates most of us on council, and I would love if you could just give us a high level, what were the main goals of this project? I think I've inferred over the years it's salmon recovery, it's flooding, it's all kinds of things. So if you could just run through those top level for us real quick.
I got a bullet list here. You want me to read it?
Sure.
So 3,000 feet of new stream channel, 12 acres of restored stream and wetland buffer, reduced downstream flooding, improved salmon habitat, rearing and migration, 2 new pedestrian trail bridges, 10 acres of noxious weed removal, directly supports high priority Chinook recovery goals, increased floodplain storage, improved fish passage, enhanced water quality from both stream relocation and future redevelopment, which will include modern stormwater controls and removal of contaminated soils from the site. So that's a pretty good list.
Thank you.
And I will just add to that, when we looked at this at the RIA 8 Salmon Recovery Council, when the city was applying for a grant for the Cooperative Watershed Management Program, it ranked as one of the very top projects because of its importance for the Chinook Recovery Plan. So, that I think just we got to underscore. Councilmember Fields.
Thank you. Director Burt, I think when this came up before, I asked a similar question about the county. Is it indifference or are we at cross purposes? Because as I listen to our goals, they're pretty consistent with a lot of the county goals, especially flood control and flood management. So can you give us any insight as to why the door is locked?
As somebody who used to work for Water and Land Resources about 25 years ago, around the, I can say, turn of the century.
I was there, by the way.
I know, right? When I actually did some work on initial salmon recovery, ESA, you're absolutely correct, Councilmember Fields. This is like a poster child project for the county. What I'm understanding and sensing is that the regulatory arm and local services did not bring in Water and Land Resources in an early enough point in the permit review. So we pressed the regulatory agency to get the clearing and grading permits, the things that we needed. Once they finally understood the press that we had, that we've been talking about for the past 2 years, they went to Water and Land Resources. Water and Land Resources threw up all these roadblocks and then came back to us with a huge laundry list of questions, what ifs, what could be, everything from, hey, you need to indemnify us for maintenance agreements, to we won't look at this until you basically have your council and the King County Council do an interlocal agreement stating that the county's off the hook for maintenance, long-term maintenance. And look, I'm a bureaucratic infighter. I know this, but even at that, I threw my hands up and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. to get an interlocal agreement through the King County Council,
Right.
right? Anything short of 9 months to a year is
Right.
ridiculous. So that's where we're at. And so I would say, well, it is indifference. It's not a priority to Willard, so it's not going to be a priority to local services, which means they're not making a priority for us.
Wild. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Stewart, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. And maybe the council should discuss this now, or maybe we should discuss it in talk time, but what do we want to do about this? And what, what actions can we take to be helpful as we are potentially being faced with yet another really tough decision in our capital program? Director Burt, you were talking about staff. Sorry, I also wanted to point out this project most certainly predates Director Burt arriving at the city, and he has picked it up with gusto, so I do appreciate it. You've been discussing I think you called it like the drop dead date for the year, but in our packet, we actually have this date. The last date to advertise for the summer is April 9th, which has long since passed. Was that in fact the date?
Ideally, in a perfect world, yes, but the project can go forward. We could actually advertise. The whole thing is about locking in the bid, right, and getting the right bid. So we could advertise later in the summer, get somebody on board, get a contract inked, get that price locked in, and then have a delay, and there would be a cost inflation on that, but not at the amount if we completely miss it. So we have some wiggle room, but I mean, in a perfect world, we would have hit it by the 9th already to get actual construction started this year.
Right. Thank you. And last question, can you remind us when the state dollars need to be spent?
I'm not sure. I think we have some wiggle room on that, but we'll double check on that one.
Thank you. Council Vice President Forsyth?
Were there also federal dollars, or was it just the state dollars we were at risk of losing? Just the state?
No, I don't think we, I
will
don't think we
flip it
have.
to
I think
say,
it's just
if there's
state.
any money we're at risk of losing, could we please just be aware?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I will also note, I raised this as a point of discussion as part of some of the RIA 8 Salmon Recovery Council work, and I did get a call from the Land and Resources, or Land and Water Resources Division Director Josh Baldy following up because he heard from the RIA 8 staff and assured me several months ago that they were working really hard with you all. But yeah, I agree with Councilmember Stewart, though. I'm not at the point that I think we should give up before we try to make this work. And I think if there is anything that we can do on the political side to be able to make this work, even if it is talking to our friends at the King County Council and seeing whether there's a quick process, I don't know if that ever happens, that we could do to be able to move something like this forward. I guess I just think we should get creative here. Let's, if we can. I know you all have been working so hard on it. Mayor Bernie?
Yeah, so it's great to have the update. I have been working with the King County executives because there has been a change, and so I'm currently drafting an email right now to her and her deputy as well to put a little fire under them. So thank you for the update, and didn't know it was still held up, so thank you. And we'll see if we can get this resolved quickly. I know they would like to have it completed as well. So we will, more to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know it's not just us. People at the county are invested. Our state legislators are invested. I think almost all of them have gone on a tour of this project. So, you know, it's a big one for us, and it's a big one for the region. So, thank you for the update. Do you want to move on to the rest of the presentation? I believe you had more slides.
We do have more slides. I think that contains the fireworks portion of the program, however. So this slide is a listing of our pedestrian and bicycle projects. This was a request that was given to us last quarter. The last 3 projects on here are those projects that I alluded to during our traffic operations program. These projects will be run out of our Traffic Operations and Safety Engineering division, and they are expected to start sometime late spring, early summer. And as I said, when they are initiated, I will move them into the portfolio section of it so you can see the progress that is being made on those projects.
Can I interrupt to ask a question here?
Yep.
I heard rumors that we're soon going to have our first always walk or scramble, pedestrian scramble. Can you share a little bit about that? Is that a secret?
No, it's not. Actually, we're super excited for this. We were going to try to get it completed by the time of the light rail opening on the 10th, but I think we're going to miss that by a day or two. So it's going to be there on Cleveland and 166. It's going to be an all-way pedestrian scramble. And what we're super excited about this is that when we do the ribbon cutting, we're going to do a 4-way ribbon cutting. And then just everybody's going to smash together in the middle. So it's going to be great. But we're using this as our first proof of concept. And the intent is once we get this installed and get the operating data from it, that, we will get these installed throughout the downtown core. And especially as we're with our adaptive signaling technology that's going in as well, it's going to make it for a really great and smooth pedestrian experience in the downtown core.
Mayor Bernie?
Thank you. I'm really excited about this. I've been asking for these since I joined council in 2016, so I'm old. That's really what I'm sharing. And I'm really excited to see how it works there because I have an entire list in my head of other opportunities for this. So really, really excited to see it happen, and we will share with the community when the ribbon cutting will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Dreams come true. All right, I continue on. Oh, Council Vice President Forsyth.
Sorry, I just want to add that I'm also very excited because I've also been advocating for these since I joined council, and I don't think we need much proof of concept. I use these all the time when I lived in New Zealand. They're amazing, and I'm so excited for the safety element that this will bring to community, that they're not going to have watching for oncoming cars making right-hand turns. This is huge, so thank you. Very excited.
All right, so the last section of this report is our Capital Division summary. These tables contain our expected milestones coming up in Q2. So some of the projects you'll see under award have already come before you for contract award. Other ones upcoming are going to be the buffered bike lanes once the ad goes out, the reservoir sports court, as well as the water tank. As I mentioned, those bids are being opened on Thursday, one of the last duties of our soon-to-be retiring city engineer. And then on this last page here, these projects are coming up for substantial completion in the next few months, and we have a little backlog of some projects that need to come before you for contract acceptance. This is when I expect my manager to crack the whip a little bit more. And that concludes my program update to you. Any questions or comments?
Councilmember Fields.
Sorry. Damn thing. I remember when we talked about ADA facilities, we did a study, 3 years ago. And what I remember is it was going to be like 50 years before we actually made all of the compliance across the city at whatever the spend rate was. Do we have any updated information as a result of any of the work we're doing on pre-design about what we're actually facing for ADA compliance? I know you're working on the priorities, but having an understanding of the overall need would be helpful.
Yeah, we have several projects that are addressing that, and we're knocking them off, project by project, but I'd have to get back to you on as far as how close we are to, finishing the list, I think is what you're asking.
what our status is on the list.
Okay.
I'm not expecting it to be close.
We can get that too.
Okay, great.
So I'll add two things on that. Number one, probably the 50-year time horizon that your Councilmember Fields was dealing with physical infrastructure relating to curb ramps, things along those lines. Yeah, that's pretty extensive. This component about the facilities, and it's something that I'm going to direct staff to take a look at. When I was at King County and actually the Seattle Public Library, we had the same situation where we had thousands of small-scale fixes to the physical environment within our facilities that needed to be made. And so rather than hiring a consultant to come in and put together a plan for us, we had the action plan there based on the ADA assessment. What we did at the library and what we did at King County was we hired essentially a project manager. That was the ADA project manager, and then we hired specific craftsmen or craftsperson skills set to be able to focus on those small scale fixes. Rails, soap dispensers, all that intricate work that you could do inside a facility that didn't need a lot of design work, but it made that ADA difference for our users. And it's something that I'm going to talk with staff about to see about maybe we pivot to that so we can take care of that low-hanging fruit while we work and use our larger capital dollars for those bigger infrastructure fixes that we need to make to the roadways and to the sidewalks.
That seems like a really good approach, so thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate these quarterly updates. I think they're really important, and I've enjoyed the chance to be in conversation with y'all tonight. I noticed, I can't remember if this was breaking news or if we'd heard this before, but congrats on the application for the MOC's Progressive Design Build delivery method being approved. That's great. What is the next decision point with council, and kind of when does that come?
So the requests for qualifications have gone out. That closes on May 8th, and we'll have the internal process beginning to score those. We will take the applicants and take that down to a short list of 3 final applicants, and then we'll have a process to go through that to select the final. So the next major touch point, we'll have an update here as we get to the end of the second quarter, but the next major touch point for council is when we bring the design build contract for approval with the selected winner.
Great, thanks.
And
May the best team win.
Exactly, and it's been super positive so far. I think we're up to over 20, 25 teams requesting the RFQ for that. So it's going to be pretty competitive.
Thank you. Not seeing any other questions. I'll check with our online council member. All right, not seeing hands up there. So yeah, I think we'll close this out and say thank you so much for this update and for all the great work that the Public Works team is doing. Please pass it on to your entire vast team. Really appreciate all this. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Maybe we'll take a 5-minute recess just since we have 2 more items on the agenda. We'll resume at 8:55. And we are back at the Redmond City Council study session on April 22nd, 2025. The next item on our agenda is the Climate Resiliency and Sustainability in Vegetation Management Plan update. Laureen Hamilton, our Parks and Recreation Director, will introduce this item. Go ahead.
Good evening, City Council. So we are here to talk about our Climate Resiliency and Sustainability in Vegetation Management Plan. And if anyone can think of a more pithy name, I am open to it. My staff could not. So we are going to keep calling it that. I'm joined this evening by Dave Tuchek, and he is my Deputy Director who oversees our Parks and Facilities team. I'm going to take a moment and just say how excited I am about the work that has happened in this plan. I think when I'm going to put Dave on the spot, I think when I first proposed this plan to Dave, he thought I had two heads a little bit a few years back. I was a new director and was like, hey, Dave, but what if we started letting the grass grow longer? And what if we started like remedowing like areas? And I think Dave wasn't sure what to do with me, I think, as a new director at that point. And yet, I've just been extremely proud and excited about the work that Dave has done with his teams, the way that they have embraced this. And it's been really incredible to see the work happen all the way from, as I call him, Deputy Dave, to Darcy, our manager, down into our techs, our Parks planning team with Cameron Zapata, our Civic Spark, Joe has joined us. And so I've just been really excited. And so we have had a lot of different questions from City Council about what work we're doing from a sustainability lens, some tree work. And so this is just for us to come and share with you this evening the great work that has been happening since this plan was done. So I'm just really proud of this work, really excited about it. And I am going to hand it over to Dave, and I'm going to try to run the slide deck. So go ahead, Dave.
All right. Good evening, Council. Yes. Oh, okay. Sounds good. So slide deck's going to be coming up. I'll be providing an update on our climate resiliency and vegetation management plan. So as Director Hamilton said, we've made some really good progress over the past 12 months. So we're going to be sharing that with you in a second.
Happy Earth Day.
It's a great day for this.
Exactly. All right. So here we are, and then we'll go to the next slide. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit, give you a bit of an overview of where we are, and then we'll talk about the implementation steps. So timeline in 23-24 is when we completed the plan, and we had Herrera, who was our consultant, that helped us with it. And then 24-25, we've been implementing. So we've done a lot of great things. We've also did a lot of communication and outreach, which was a really big portion of this project. So a lot of on-site signage, web page, a lot of social media, and then getting a lot of feedback from the community as we rolled it out. We also incorporated some of our best management practices that we were previously doing. So using our super mulch, which is a very heavy mulch that we use in shrub beds for weed suppression, water retention, some low-mow sites that we were already doing, and a lot of different weed control methods like our foam stream and our mechanical weed control. So then we moved into the past 12 months, really digging into the implementation, which I'm going to be going over. So you can go to the next one. Naturalized meadows. And you can see in the pictures here, 3 different parks that we did some of our naturalized meadows in last year. So a picture on the left is down at Idlewood, if you got down there last summer. It looked a lot different than what it has in the past. So the tall grass, the tall meadows in this picture were actually mowed once a week before last year. And then the Redmond Central Connector and then Perigo Park are the other 2 pictures. So we really carved out these places to create these naturalized meadows. We ended up creating naturalized meadows in 19 parks during last year. And then we also, you can see there's a sign in one of the pictures. And so basically, we informed the public that this is a naturalized meadow, part of our climate resiliency program. And there's a QR code so they could go right to the website. We thought it was very successful. And then these are a couple of the naturalized meadows that we implemented. So we have the no-mow and then the low-mow sites. So the no-mow is literally, we're not mowing those areas anymore. And a lot of these areas were problem areas for us to maintain in the first place. So steep slopes, really wet areas. And then the low-mow sites, we basically mow twice a year. And so we'll let it grow tall, create a nice meadow, and then we'll mow it in the fall. And a lot of that is related to either fire suppression and then also, but mainly controlling the noxious weeds. Invasive species. So in that rotation, we can accomplish both. And then I really like this one picture up in the far right. So that was, I believe, at Cascade View, and it was just interesting. So we create this meadowed area, and then the deer show up, and one of our staff who was kind of on the fence about this whole program, she just got really excited about it, hopped off her mower, took a picture of the deer, and anyway. Yeah, it turned out really good. So that's what we're doing for the naturalized meadows, and then you can go to the wildflower cultivation. So this is a fun aspect of it, so creating these areas where we have a lot of wildflowers and pollinators. So these are 3 different sites that we worked on this last year and actually this last fall. So hopefully this spring and summer, you're going to be seeing these areas just filled with wildflowers like in that those middle pictures. So the lot on there, the picture on the left is a lot that's actually just down the street on 85th and 164th. You probably drive by it quite a bit, and it just looks like a vacant lot. But then we have filled it with wildflower seeds, so hopefully late spring, early summer, you'll notice it. It's going to have quite a few flowers on it. It'll be very impactful. And then the other 2 pictures, one is of Grass Lawn Park, right by the main soccer field. Pretty large site. It's about 1 acre in size. So that's fully loaded with wildflowers. And then there's also some pathways that we've created in there so that people can walk through there. And then lastly, Perigo Park. Really, the main reason we're doing this is to create pollinator habitat, but then it also has a lot of visual interest too for aesthetics.
I see we have a question. Council Vice President Forsyth?
Thanks. First off, really excited about the Grassland Park one because that's the park I walk in almost every day. So I remember seeing the seeds go down and wondering what that was, and I should have realized it was the seeds. As part of this, I was hoping we were going to do some of the medians in like along 148th. Is that a part of the extended plan?
Yeah, I'll answer that. So yes, median transitions are CIP projects, and so we do have a few built in for this year. And we will talk a little bit about that later in this presentation. Okay. But yes, that is part of the ongoing plan. But probably, yeah, medium, long term. It's going to take some time. Dave, on this slide, correct me if I'm wrong, did we not cultivate our own wildflower mix?
We did customize it. So, yeah, we have
just thought that was a fun little fact.
A few horticultural seed geeks, I guess you'd call them. So they worked with the supplier and customized the seed formulation. And, yeah, they put a lot of work into it. So, yeah.
Can I ask one quick question on this as well?
Yeah.
Are we going to do any fun communications when they go into full bloom, like the peak bloom moment to the public?
I think that's a great idea. And I believe my staff are listening to all of this, so Zach can make note to work with our communications folks on that one. But yes, we have been having a lot of fun with the different ways that we can engage with the community about the work that we're doing. The signs in the parks actually say "Parks are climate heroes" is kind of the tagline we've adopted. It's and our National Recreation and Parks Association kind of tagline. And so really trying to make it as fun and engaging as possible too, because it is a different way to maintain our parks than we have done traditionally. So just trying to help people understand the why behind it.
That's great. I'm envisioning a future as we get more of these wildflower sites where we could have a wildflower map of Redmond.
That'd be fun.
Go on a tour of all the wildflower sites at a certain time.
Like
of
the
spring.
tulip fields.
Yeah, kind of like the tulip fields, or how people know the moment when the salmon are reaching, the underneath the trestle, that we have the same with wildflowers. Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah, I love all of these ideas, and I'd also like to know if the seed mix has a name yet. If it doesn't, we have had a really good record of naming things lately in this past winter with Control Salt Delete getting on the road and all of that. So I see an opportunity there too.
Some real opportunities for sure.
So anyway, just thank you for helping us end the night on a joyful topic.
Councilmember Nueva Camina?
Thank you. Well, I am most definitely one for all the whimsy. I do have a technical question, and that is at a high level for those that are listening. Like we kind of glossed over, and we are planning this for pollinators to come. Mr. Tuchek, why is it important for us to have pollinators?
Yeah, well, pollinators are extremely important, particularly in the agricultural industry. So I believe it's 85% of our crops utilize pollinators, and pollinators are actually on the decline. So anytime that we can enhance the environment and living conditions for pollinators, they're critical, literally, for the survival of the planet. So that's why we're doing it.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Fields?
I had the exact same question, but I would just add a comment. When I was at AWC in Vancouver, Washington last summer, went for a bike ride and came across a field with thousands of bees, and it was pretty cool to see. So to the extent that we can plant bee-friendly wildflowers in Redmond, it would be real appreciated. So.
Absolutely, thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, and then we're moving on to more pollinator and community gardens. So I wanted to talk about the community gardens first. So in 2024, we finished up adding 10 additional community gardens out at Jewel Park. And then really big news for us is we've just recently opened the community gardens down at Anderson Park. So that added 26 new community gardens, and I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at them, but yeah, it's really amazing how it turned out. And what was nice was it was in-house design, in-house installation. I mean, I don't know, the staff did such a remarkable job. I'd like to put it up for some kind of an award because it's pretty amazing. So if you get a chance, and especially if you're going to be down at the park for Arbor Day planting this Friday, definitely come down and check it out. So
What time is that at, Dave Tuchek?
I think we're at 1:30 is when the event happens. So anyway, and then we're hopefully we'll be expanding our community garden program into the future. What was that?
1 o'clock.
It's at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Thank you. And anyway, and all of our community gardens are sold out. They sold out very quickly, which indicates to us that the community utilizes them, and probably a good thing to build some more in the future. And then pollinator community garden. So with the community garden at Anderson Park, it's completely surrounded by pollinator flower beds on both sides. And we're going to continue to enhance our pollinator population. We'll go to the next one, tree canopy understory expansion, another critical part of our CRSVM plan. So As part of the project, our consultants took a look at all of our public land, and they identified roughly where tree canopy could be expanded, but it wasn't very definitive. So this past winter, we had staff members from park operations. There was a crew of 2 to 3, went to all of these sites and really truthed them out in the field, and then identified areas that would be really good candidates for tree canopy expansion, and then some that have some difficulties and challenges. So then we're in the process now of prioritizing those sites, and then we're working with our TIS department to GIS map in a prioritized fashion, so then we can really be focused on expanding our tree canopy. So we'll be actually doing a lot of planting this fall, and then fall of 2026 and beyond. But we really needed those sites identified. All right.
Apologies. Could I just jump in for a sec on that? So are those going to be all mostly staff-led in terms of the actual planting, or are those going to be community volunteer events?
Yeah, so it's going to be it'll be a combination, and then some of it will also, we've had really good luck with hiring contractors too, depending on the size. So if it's a pretty large site, maybe an acre, acre and a half, we'll actually hire a contractor to do the installation and the above ground irrigation install, and then maybe 3 years of maintenance. But then we'll also have volunteer projects, and then we could also utilize our Green Redmond program with forest stewards. So kind of a combination. And then we're also working with Tom Hardy from Natural Resources to incorporate their sites. So eventually we're hoping to have kind of a grand map indicating these areas, and then planting a lot of trees. Which kind of leads us into the bottom bullet, which is a really exciting thing that we've never done before in the city of Redmond, which is our new tree giveaway program. So Joe Nelson is going to be sharing information on that. Take it away, Joe.
Hello, Council. I'm Joe Nelson, the Civic Spark Fellow that is implementing Redmond's first tree giveaway program. The giveaway will be held on Saturday, September 27 at the Art Hill parking lot. The application will open on mid-July, and participants will be required to apply in advance of the tree giveaway as quantities are limited. Residents of Redmond living within the 98052 zip code are eligible to participate. Our goal is to give away a total of 500 native trees to help the city achieve its 40% tree canopy goal by 2050. There will be a robust educational component for the giveaway to ensure long-term health and success. This includes a tree planting and care guide and a tree catalog outlining lighting requirements, mature tree size, and optimal soil conditions. We have worked with staff to select a variety of coniferous and deciduous trees that are in line with the Climate Resiliency and Sustainability Vegetation Management Plan. To promote the event, I will be tabling at several of our community parks at Derby Days as well. Communications will be promoting the event through city and social media outlets, along with signage in parks and well-traveled streets. We are partnering with a local nonprofit, 300 Trees, to help with this event. Finally, there will be opportunities for the community to volunteer at the event. We'll be sharing out more information at this summertime. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions on that before we move on? Councilmember Nueva Camina?
Thank you. This is so exciting. The question that I have immediately was, we've got a lot of trees that are coming out because they weren't the right tree for the space. And it's caused a lot of feelings throughout our city around this. So I would imagine then that with the educational piece that's being done, that these things are going to be touched on, like where the appropriate, like with the size, where's the appropriate place for a tree like this, yeah? And then my second question was around, we've talked a lot about climate change and how some of our native trees, our native vegetation, might no longer be able to thrive with the new changes that we're seeing in our climate. My question is, has that been considered in the selection of these trees?
Yeah, I can answer that. So exactly right. And that's why when we put our plan together, our consultants, if you look towards the back of the plan, there's probably 10 or 12 pages with multiple lists of climate resilient plants. So trees, large, medium, small, ground covers, understory plants. And they're all identified plant material that can thrive now and then into the future with climate change. So you are going to see some native plants that aren't on there, like western red cedar, because if you drive around a bit and you're driving around some of the local forest, particularly during some of the really tough summers that we've had recently, you'll have a lot of chlorotic cedar trees, and basically they're dying, right? Because it's changed. And so really the plant material that is selected is purposeful for that reason.
Thank you.
And regarding your question on the selection of trees to be appropriate for the spaces, that's something we've covered in our planting guides and educational materials. We also have a dedicated webpage that has a lot of excellent resources, so everyone will be equipped so they have the proper tree for the right place.
Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you. Actually, this is great. I really appreciate learning about the giveaway and all the education that's going to go along with it. This is just so tangential to and so interconnected to a conversation we've been hoping to have around the tree canopy strategic plan. And so I was wondering if council leadership has an update on if that has been, if we have a schedule for that, or if that's still pending.
I think we do, but I'm not sure what the date is offhand. But I do know we have put in the request, and we're planning to get it on the schedule.
Awesome. I'll save my questions for that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And I will ask a quick question. Joe, how long is your fellowship for?
Yeah, it's going to be until the end of August.
Wonderful. Well, glad to have you here with our city and getting to visit our council.
Glad to be here.
All right, we'll continue. Yeah, and we've just been really fortunate to have Joe here because of his enthusiasm and really pulled this together, because we've talked about this tree giveaway for a few years, but he's making it happen. So, and he's going to come back and participate as a volunteer during that tree giveaway, even though his fellowship will have expired. All right, so then just a couple of other things that I want to mention, and then we'll wrap it up. So leaf management, which takes a lot of labor during the fall in our park system. We traditionally move a lot of leaves, use our giant leaf sucker, suck up all the leaves into the truck and then haul it off. Whereas this last year, we had a different approach. And so really intentionally tried to leave the leaves on site. So this is a good example, good diagrams. And so if you look at this slide in the upper right, it kind of outlines where the staff are going to be basically blowing the fallen leaves in that area and creating what we call a leaf island. And then the picture on the left kind of shows the end result. So really the goal is to leave the leaves on site, let them decompose over time, improve soil, improve water retention, and ultimately improve the health of the trees. And then you're using less fertilizer, you're using less mowing equipment around the trees, under the trees. We had really good success, so we're hoping to expand that into the future. And you can kind of see a list of some of the advantages. I went over a few of them, but like I said, probably the biggest is labor savings, and then improving the health of the soil, and then ultimately the trees.
Council Vice President Forsyth?
Thanks. These were really cool to see last year, especially in the Grasslawn Park where I saw them the most. I know one way of helping protect our pollinators is by leaving the debris in the leaves. So that's another benefit of doing this. I forget when these got cleaned up. Can you just remind us when they lasted through to the spring?
Oh, the actual leaves?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they are still there. They should, but they should have decomposed by now. Yeah, so once we left them, and we'll be piling on to those again next fall. Yeah, so it's a permanent installation.
I can tell you they decomposed because I just walked there this morning.
They do decompose, yeah, and they go back into the soil. All right, then a couple more slides. So a couple of quick things. We've got turf and right-of-way renovation, so we're going to talk a little bit about the right-of-ways, but turf renovation first. So this piece of turf is actually the Great Lawn, which is right outside the window here. And what we're doing is we're reseeding it, renovating that turf this spring, and we're going to be using tall fescue blend, which drastically requires less water than the ryegrass that we traditionally use through our park system. So we're using it as a test plot to see how it responds. So that's what's happening there. And, we've had experience with some fescue in the past in different applications, since that's one of our main event areas too. We'll see how it holds up, but we have faith that it's going to.
Council Vice President Forsyth?
Sorry, this area was recently brought up last summer as uneven, especially for ADA concerns. Is there going to be some evening out of that as well? Through that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. There's going to be topping it off, evening it out, overseeding it.
Thank you.
I just saw them out there, but yesterday and today, bringing in additional soil, leveling it out, spreading it out. So it may not be perfect, but it will be improved.
Yep. And then talking about right-of-way renovation. So we manage and maintain quite a few landscape developed right-of-ways. So I believe 148th was mentioned, 156, Avondale Road, SR 202, so quite a bit, Westlake Sammamish. And some of the landscaping that exists, it requires a lot of maintenance. It requires a lot of shearing, hedging, and then a lot of it requires a lot of water to keep it alive. So as part of our plan, we want to replace that landscaping with lower water consuming plants, and then also plants that are going to require less maintenance. And so that's part of the plant list, but we'll have to come up with some designs and then actually perform the work. We would prefer to target some areas that also, some of the landscapes are really old and kind of tired, so they need to be renovated anyway. So this will be an opportunity to make that happen. And with a lot of this, it's experimental, and we'll learn, but we have had really good success in a lot of different parts of our implementation plan.
And one of the biggest pieces as we continue to implement all of these things is, one, most of them we're testing in one season and then rolling out more extensively in the next. So we tested a lot of our rewilding last season, kind of fine-tuned some things, and are able to roll it out further. The same will be true of the right-of-ways. So like Dave was saying, kind of targeting ones that maybe are already a little tired. The other piece is the community education. And so that's one of the things that we continue to try to elevate, is that as we change things, why are we changing it? How can you expect things to look different? I remember Council President Kritzer asking in the last budget cycle, we tried not watering and the community didn't like it. What's different? Well, hopefully the community education will be different. Why are we doing it? How will it impact the environment? How will it impact our resource levels? How will it allow us to be able to provide other services and other amenities to the community, because we're not keeping our grass at, what is it, 2 inches? We increased to 2.5 this year.
Actually, we're up to 3
We're
now.
up to 3 now. So as we are shifting the way that we maintain, we're also trying to bring the community along and educate. And so while it may seem like some of these are a little bit slower or take a little more time, it also is allowing us to help the community kind of acclimate to a different way of our parks looking and feeling as they experience them. So it's not a whiplash kind of experience that we maybe have experienced in the past. And just really big kudos to Dave, but also to our folks in the communications team who have worked alongside our park staff to make sure that that's happening.
Great. All right, and then the last slide that I have is equipment electrification. So I know that we've talked to council regarding this in the past. So we made some really good progress. This last year, we bought 3 riding electric mowers, and the staff absolutely love them. They're unbelievably quiet. In fact, if you're in the park, if you're just walking by there, you may not hear it. They're that quiet. They require minimal maintenance. They leave a perfect cut. They just plug them in at night. They're good to go in the morning. And so I anticipate as our existing equipment wears out, we'll be replacing with the electric equipment. We also purchased 3 smaller push mowers. We purchased quite a bit of electric hand equipment, so the line trimmers, the blowers, the chainsaws. We have our first Ford Lightning pickup truck, and then a couple of electric utility vehicles too. So made some great progress in that area, and like I said, staff have embraced it, and we're just going to keep on moving in that direction. We will be, until the technology completely catches up with the backpack blowers, we're probably going to be, well, I know for a fact we'll be using them for probably 2 to 3 months during the really wet time of the year when we have to move really, really wet leaves, heavy leaves. The technology isn't quite there yet. The batteries are still too heavy for our staff to carry for the really big backpack blowers, but that gap is shrinking. So I would anticipate, probably in the next 2 years or so, we can possibly be all electric with that too.
Dave, can you remind me the weight difference between the gas and the fully electric backpack?
Yeah, so it's about 10 pounds. So they're already, the gas backpack blowers are already 26 pounds, 24 to 26 pounds. So when you add another 10 on top of that, it's significant, particularly if you're carrying one of those backpack blowers 8 hours a day for 5 days a week during November and December. And yeah, so we're really tuned into staff injuries and longevity, and so. Ooh, and I think I took it a little longer than anticipated, but we get excited about it, so.
Well, thank you. And I think we asked a lot of questions along the way, but we'll also open it up for any remaining questions from the council. Councilmember Fields.
Was there anything, ideas that you came up with that got cut on the drawing board? For example, we don't have the resources, or as you pointed out, maybe it's not ready. Or is there anything that we can look at from as exciting as this maybe next year you're exciting again?
Yeah, so I would say really, for me personally, I just want to push some of this stuff even further. I think that what we've got are kind of the really big items. Tree canopy, personally, is really big. I know that we all set that 40% tree canopy. Some people wonder if we're going to get there, and it's going to take a lot of work. And so we're trying to design this so that's why we're doing the tree giveaway, because we realize that to get to that 40%, we just can't do it on the public land. We also have to include private property. So that's why we're doing that. But, that's a really big one. I love moving to all electric. I mean, everything about it. The community gardens, like I said. So is there anything that we're not doing right now? No, I think that we're doing really the big stuff that we've intended to do.
I guess the question was more, is there anything that you want to do that you came up to barriers, like resource limitation or something?
Well, I would say, and we talked about it a little bit, is, quite honestly, as we explore some of this right-of-way re-landscaping, it can get pretty expensive. And just realistically, taking a look at our entire capital budget for the city, realistically, I don't know how far it's going to probably take us longer than I think in an ideal world that would happen. But as we talked about earlier, we have a big capital list, and there's some big dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a comment, Mayor Bernie?
I did, but I didn't want to interrupt if there were any more questions from council. I just wanted to say something at the end.
Oh, I do have a question.
I'll wait for you then.
Happy for you to speak. All right. I had two quick questions. One was, I love what we're doing and that we're kind of walking the walk as the city in all the spaces that we're able to work. How are we taking these learnings and spreading them out in community? Like thinking about like, how do we spread no mow and those types of things? Do we have kind of a plan to be able to equate and say, here, we're doing it, now you try?
Yeah, that is kind of the next piece for us as we kind of figure out what is this going to look like for us? How do we bring the community along? And so a big piece of that for us is to expand things like our Arbor Day. So this Earth Week, we've been doing a lot of different activities and promotions and programs that the community can join us in to learn more about these different ways that they can interact. The tree giveaway is a really big piece of that. We also just brought on, her name is Maya Clem. She is our Green Redmond and volunteer coordinator. And so she has taken on kind of that volunteer coordination bucket, but she has also taken on the Green Redmond coordination because Forterra no longer supports Green City efforts. And so one of my hopes for her work is also part of that. Yeah, how do we take it further? How do we do more? How do we bring more people along in the process? Because we are doing a lot of the work. And so, how do we continue to message out about that? How do we bring that in? Because I think we don't always know quite how to do that. So we don't have robust plans right now, but we are looking at it, trying to figure out what that looks like and how do we balance that out.
That's great. Now we have her on board. One great connection she might make would be with the King Conservation District staff. I know
Yes.
They do, their native plant sale, and they often will come to communities and do programming. Yeah. I feel like when I was on their advisory committee, they were always saying, like, we'd love for more cities to invite us in to do more things, and take advantage of our programming. So that's another potential opportunity.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I will say, too, the other piece is that, fun fact, only 14% of parks organizations have a plan like this in place in the country. So it's actually, we're all kind of on the front end of this. Herrera, who was our consultant who worked with us on this, they were like, we've actually never done a full plan like this before. And so they've been really enjoying actually tracking it with us. We're doing a presentation at the Washington Recreation and Parks Association Fall Conference that we're actually going to be hosting here at the Redmond Senior and Community Center. I share that because it is a little bit of us like learning as we're going, because there's not a lot of examples of this happening. A lot of cities are doing resilience work, but to have this type of a plan that's really charting that course in a comprehensive way, it's a relatively new thing in the parks world. So we're kind of figuring out as we're going, and so I do appreciate the ideas, but that might give you an idea as to how we're kind of charting a course, as you will. Blazing a trail. Let's blazing a trail.
Thought leaders.
There we go. Yeah.
Can't wait to see the report outs in the future of all
exciting.
the impacts. Mayor Bernie.
Yeah, blazing a trail through the wildflowers, something like that. So I will share that this is one of the most exciting things that we have going on. And I tell that to people because some people know I have a background in biology, and so I know probably a little too much about some of this work. So, but I do want to first, I know Director Hamilton thanked her staff, but I want to thank her because she took the idea when I, shared with everyone, like, I'd like you to be a little more innovative in how we do things. I want you to think long-term about how do we change our practices and really do the things we need to do. And so I think the pandemic, as those of us who were around during the pandemic know that we tried a little bit of not mowing things, and that didn't go very well. For our community was really concerned when we did that. But I think that opened up our eyes that there must be a better way to manage some of the spaces that we have instead of expending as much time and energy that we have, and at the same time taking care of our planet a lot better. this being Earth Week, I think this is a great time to talk about that. But I do want to thank her for taking up that challenge and really thinking a little differently. I really want to thank the staff for thinking a little differently about our parks rather than being like golf course style, to really think about how are they used and what are they there for, and they aren't just for grass spaces for everybody, but these other things as well. And they've just taken it and run with it. And as Dave mentioned, some of our team have talents we just didn't even know about, and so for them to create seeds, wildflower seed. The Redmond wildflower mix that we're using is pretty exciting because we have these talents that we can use. So all of that to say thank you all very much. I think that the work that you've done is really incredible, and I think that our community will see it and start to understand the opportunities there. And with that, kind of to go with your questions, we also work with Cascade Water Alliance, and they have a turf out program that community members can use for if they had lawns and they want to get rid of them, and they have a program to help people do that. And that's kind of the similar direction that we're going with some of these things, is to think a little differently about our green spaces. And I also have been sharing out with like K4C the work that we're doing. I've shared this plan out as well as the kind of turf we're using for the Great Lawn, because people are really excited about that. And I also share this kind of information out nationally because, as you mentioned, not many cities are doing this. And I do think cities are looking toward ways to conserve and treat their planet better and do things differently. And eventually, this will also reduce our staffing costs. We won't be mowing as much. It'll reduce our greenhouse gas emissions because we'll be doing things differently. So all of that to say that, as you can tell, I'm extremely excited about this. But I think our community, we're really, once they start taking a look around and noticing these things as, spring continues, and things come pop out of the ground, and they will be able to take a look around and really be able to enjoy things in Redmond even more so. So it's really that space in Grassland in particular, that's always been kind of a boggy, weird, unusable space, and to have it to be a usable space like this is fantastic. So thank you all very much.
Well, hooray. So, are there any other follow-up steps? Otherwise, we can close out this item.
I would just like to remind everyone, it is Earth Week. We have all kinds of fun things happening. We had a forest walk through Heron Rookery today that had about 15 people joining our new volunteer coordinator. We do have the Anderson Park planting event this Friday at 1 p.m. Come on out. We're going to plant, how many trees are we planting? Just one?
We're planting 6.
Great.
But they're larger. They're 6 feet tall.
So we'll be planting 6 trees out at Anderson Park. If you recall, the bomb cyclone hit that park pretty hard, and we lost some pretty significant trees down there. And as we have all acknowledged, the downtown core could use some trees. So we're going to plant some trees down there. Come on down and see the new community gardens as well. There will also be poetry. Because it's also Poetry Month. And so just follow our social media. There's a lot of fun things happening. We will be doing story time, Arbor Week walks, all kinds of fun stuff. A free showing of the Lorax, which I'm personally very excited about because in parks we speak for the trees. So please join us for Earth Week. It's going to be great, and Arbor Day on Friday. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, and thanks for just this incredible work. We'll move on to the last item on our agenda. Thank you. The last item on our agenda is council talk time. I had just a few items, or one main item that I wanted to bring up with the council, which was around council conversations, and then we'll open it up if other people wanted to bring something up. I'll note, so we're planning the council conversation for April 29th in Grasslawn Park, or not April 29th, May 29th in Grasslawn Park, apologies. And so we were doing a little bit of planning today, council leadership, and just wanted to check in with the council as we kind of plan how the format will work. So as you all may remember, when we did it in downtown park, we did the kind of speed dating, but where both council members moved and people moved at the 20-minute mark. And I think we did 5 20-minute sessions throughout the hour. So I have a couple questions. We're thinking about returning back to a similar type of thing, but we are going to have more of a setup where we're going to have some longer tables. We'll be sitting and clustering around. So we were considering that maybe we would just have council members move if we do the moving. But I guess the first question is, do council members want us to go back to the format of doing kind of sitting at tables with people and moving periodically? I see a thumbs up there. Okay. So, and then I guess the question is, did that seem like the right amount of time, the 20 minutes? Did that seem like enough time to have conversations? Should we stick with 5 20-minute sessions, or should we go down to like 4 slightly longer sessions? We also probably will have an hour, and then we can have mingle time on either side. Any comments? Councilmember Stewart?
I don't think it really changes the productivity of the event either way. They could be slightly longer than they were last time, and that would be just as fine, or they could stay how they were. I think both could be successful.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure there weren't any burning opinions on that. Council Vice President Forsyth?
My burning opinion is that the 20 minutes was fine.
Great. Okay, good. And then I guess last is, last time that, well, actually two. So one is last time we had set topics at each table. What we were thinking about this time was that people could be seated and the council members could rotate, so you could talk with different people throughout. But essentially, you could just, we would give council members a couple icebreaker questions for every group when they arrive to them. Because ultimately, we went around and they wanted to share what they wanted to share about, so that you could kind of just let the conversation topics be more free-flowing than saying we're just going to talk about one topic or another. But I did want to check in to see whether council members have opinions on that. We thought it might be interesting to try it that way, see how that compares to the set topics, and then we can choose which one we like the best for the next one. Does that sound like a good plan to folks? All right, great. And then last is, we will try to work on like a couple of icebreaker questions just so council members have them, although I think typically our public are very ready to share their thoughts, but good ways to get things to discuss. But I did want to ask, is there anything else that council members feel they need to be prepared for that session, or anything else that you'd make as requests as we plan for it? We are going to have some light snacks like popcorn for folks. Council Vice President Forsyth.
I did want to add, we did brainstorm a couple of hot topic ideas for Deidre to give us some potential talking points for. Do you recall what those were?
I think it was for the next.
Oh, that was the next conversation? Okay. Never mind.
But yeah, we were brainstorming. I will say we were kind of brainstorming for if when we have our Overlake one, some topics that might be of interest to people in that area. So if folks have ideas on that, or for Grasslawn as well, send those in, and that way we can kind of share those out. Send those to Deidre. Councilmember Stewart?
Thanks. I think this is going to be really fun evening with community. I'm really glad you mentioned snacks, because I had been thinking lately that I should have suggested back in the budget we duplicate the success of the Parks Department from the Southeast Redmond Community Park event, where we literally had an ice cream truck, and it was very successful in drawing folks out. So maybe that'll be for next time around. I know that's kind of a bigger ask, but it very successfully got people to come and participate in the program. So thanks.
We can definitely look into the ice cream possibility, I think. But yeah, council members, just make sure we are going to notice that as a public meeting. So just make sure to hold that on your calendars. Speaking of other meetings that we won't notice as a special meeting, that one, because we are hoping we'll have all the council members there, we will notice that as a special meeting. We do have, as we mentioned earlier, 2 different sessions, one on April 28th, that's just next week, and then one on May 28th, which is the day before our council conversations, where the facilitator that we just signed the contract with will be working with the Parks Department to host a conversation around the teen services discussion. And so we were thinking that we might have a couple council members join each of those if there is interest, but that way we would do it a little more intentionally to avoid needing to notice those as meetings, even though we are going to also look to schedule a special meeting for the council on the teen topic. Mayor Bernie, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, it really is a community, getting input from the community, so the council would be there just to listen. The program, I won't be there, it's just for that. So I just want to be clear about, so you wouldn't be expected to like say anything or speak or anything like that. I mean, give a formal presentation or anything like that. But it would be great to have 1 or 2 council members there if they can do that.
Yeah, so I just did want to check in if there are any kind of, if there's any council members that are like, I definitely want to do this date, to be able to share it out now, and that way we can kind of plan around which ones have open spots. Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah, thank you. I'm available for the one in May, but I'm unavailable for the one in April. Thank you.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have a availability right now? Council Vice President Forsyth?
I am unavailable for both, unfortunately.
Okay. Councilmember Nueva Camina?
I'm unavailable for April and tentatively available for May.
Okay, so I'm hearing Stewart and Nueva Camina for May. Great. I'm not seeing any other hands, so yeah, I'll just say what we'll do is we'll use the council calendar function, and we'll plug in folks' names on that one, and if we hit more than 3, then we'll have to have you work it out so that we only have 3 there. Just because this is a topic that ultimately probably will come back to council, so we want to be aware of quorum on that issue. And I think that I will also just give one quick note, which is that I know we've been really slow on it, but we are going to be following up. Council Vice President Forsyth and I have a fire lit under us, and we will be getting out the final notes from our retreat. We have been following up on a lot of the top priority items. We actually today just went through what were some of our items, and we said, yes, we've actually made progress on this, this, and this, and we'll be coming back to you all on that. We're going to try to be honest, we had to do a little massaging on where the notes ended up and where our prioritization, if you remember, we did an interesting exercise, and we were trying to figure out how do we put this into a kind of actionable list for ourselves. And so we're going to come back to you all with kind of a proposed set of bucketed priorities that also we can share out with the staff in terms of our work going forward. So we're kind of thinking about the buckets in terms of what are some things that we either already are doing or already started on, or we can do that's really in our in kind of our, like, council just needs to talk about it and show up or do it, or we could work behind the scenes with Mayor Bernie to kind of like get something scheduled versus like things that need to go through as a hopper item or are a bigger work policy item. And so that way we really kind of split the list up, and then we might do another quick prioritization exercise on a much smaller list. So that way for anything that is like actual deep policy work, we can do that together and make sure we're clear on the order of the list. But yeah, I think that brings it to the end of my updates. Any items from council? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I have two, and I realize it's late, so I'll be quick. On Saturday was the first of our 2 gun violence prevention programs, our gun buyback programs. I was able to stop by for a few minutes to just see what the community response was. I understand that there had been a lot of response generated online last week. And when I arrived at the event, the line in the parking lot to participate in the surrendering of firearms that were no longer wanted was like it was like around a dozen cars long when I arrived. In the end of the day, Chief Lowe let me know that we had 100 firearms surrendered. That included rifles, handguns. There were a couple of higher capacity things that were turned in while I was there for just a few minutes. And Chief Lowe let me know that actually the program ended a little bit early when all of the gift cards were exhausted. So the response was bigger than probably what was expected. So I do anticipate that the team will give us a full report. And I want to give a special shout out to Jill, who did so much work to get the event out and into the media in the days leading up to the event. I think all around it was a success and we learned a ton. And I do realize I'm sharing this news in the context of another event that happened just yesterday, but there are 100 fewer unwanted or improperly stored firearms in Redmond homes this week than there were last week. And I'm very grateful for our community in that. Wanted to bring up an ombuds issue into this space because I am the ombud this month. Today, the council and the mayor's office received a request that I actually believe should be evaluated in the context of something we put in the budget, but haven't had a chance to work on yet. And that's related to the dollars we put in a place for a community-based events and innovation, but we haven't had a chance to work on that just yet. So we don't need to maybe discuss it right now, but as folks take in that information from that request we got today, I'd be curious if others are also interested, if that would be something to pursue in part of that new program conversation that we should also schedule for ourselves. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you clarify the email?
We received an email from Pride Across the Bridge regarding their event in August.
Oh, great. Thank you. Council Vice President Forsyth?
I would just say I'm interested in moving that conversation forward. Thank you for bringing that up for the ombuds conversation, because I was hoping that someone would, so, otherwise I was going to.
Yes, thank you. I'd missed the key phrase of what that item was about. So yes, I would be very interested in that discussion and whether there's any. I think my thought after having seen that is that at the end of last year we didn't end up allocating our council contingency. We did roll it forward into this budget. And we might be able to at least look at that amount that we rolled from the last budget cycle, which at the time it just felt like it was a little bit too rushed. We didn't want to just make a decision and bring something up in the very last meeting of the year as council leadership, but we could bring back, that could be one option, or we can look at other options if we wanted to think about that, because we have given to community-based organizations before. Councilmember Fields.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the things we talked about in the retreat was the potential concerns about our immigrant community and, what the uncertainty of what is likely to happen. I've had a chance to meet with various communities, the Somalian community. First time ever I met the Kazakh community, and some others. There is a growing concern, and stories are starting to emerge about somebody knows somebody that is not being treated fairly. I think this is something that we, and I did watch the mayor and Chief Lowe's video, and I think that's important. But I think that the city has to come to terms with what's ahead for us, because this is a very quickly growing situation where people are becoming more and more afraid about losing friends, losing family, and I think that we have to have some conversations about that in the near future.
Mayor Bernie, do you know if there are any planned conversations or additional actions that you'll be doing from the administrative side to support our immigrant community at the moment?
And we haven't scheduled anything at this time. We have reached out to people to let them know we're available, but we also have, our human services staff do outreach with individuals and communities as well. But we haven't had any requests as of yet. Even though we put that out there to the community if they wanted it. So nothing has been scheduled.
Great. It might make sense for us to get an update maybe during Public Safety Human Services, just from our human services staff about efforts specifically to engage our immigrant community. I know I went to the Nourishing Net Workshop, which was a gathering of all the different nourishing networks from across the area, where they were kind of connecting on the current state of being able to address gaps, especially in food security and other types of needs in our communities. And I ended up at the table with some folks who were saying they work heavily with people in our immigrant communities, and that many of them since January have been very scared to come and access those resources. And so it would be useful to know from our human services staff just how they're engaging with our partners, what we might be able to do as a city to be able to offer additional support at this time. Did you have a comment, Council Vice President?
Yeah, and today when we were reviewing our council retreat notes, we noted that one of the topics was about police policies and as it relates to ICE and immigration. So we noted that we want to try to get that on an upcoming committee to have that conversation. I will also share again that when Councilmember Stewart and I were in DC, that was an exact question that I brought up with Congresswoman Del Bene, and she told the entire group of our entire delegation from Washington that was meeting with her that day to have anyone who is experiencing those issues to reach out directly to her office. She did say that it has to be the person experiencing the issue that reaches out, but we can definitely help facilitate those introductions and make sure that people are getting the right resources. If they're already stuck somewhere, if they're already having those issues, that they just need to know about it so they can do whatever they can do on their end.
Thank you for raising that, Councilmember Fields. We'll follow up on a council conversation, since that was something that was identified in our council retreat. It's kind of why I hopped on it, as that was on our list that we were looking at. Following up on the previous ombuds item that was raised, I guess I just wanted to close the loop on that. Do any council members, maybe 3 council members, have any interest in working, up to 3 council members interested in working on bringing a hopper item forward with a more direct proposal related to that? Or was that, what was the kind of proposal that you were bringing up there, Councilmember Stewart?
Maybe I did it backwards, but I wanted to air that we had received a request from an organization, a request for financial support. In the budget, we allocated dollars toward the community-based innovation fund, but we haven't done the work yet to put thought into what that looks like. And so when I first saw it, this was my very first connection to that item. I see also that the Parks Director is behind you, and she may have something to say on this topic. And while she comes to the table, I'll just say a third thing, which is that the Council President also mentioned council contingency that was unallocated and could be. I just really hope that when that conversation comes, it gets to be holistic. We have a lot of things going on in the city, and so I look forward to being able to have a holistic conversation about any choices we make in that regard.
I agree with that overall. Although I will say part of the reason why we didn't just bring it last minute to say let's put it towards something, which is kind of what we did the previous biennium, was a very kind of last minute allocation, was so that we could have a more thoughtful conversation. I just wanted to note this might be a good use. I'll also note I had written to Director Hamilton, who hopefully now can give us the update on the process for the Innovation Fund, and I know it's in the works. So
Yes. So Council President Kritzer had reached out to Melissa Files and myself asking where kind of we were on this particular ask that had come through from the last budget cycle. So my staff has been working on kind of a rough program outline of what this could look like based on things that we've heard. You know, we've gotten a lot of feedback from event producers and things like that, while acknowledging that we want to be able to help kind of as many event producers or organizations as possible. And so we are planning to try to bring that through council for committee of the whole. I believe we had said by June is I believe what we had shared with. I was looking for the email, but I couldn't find it. But I have a draft that I'm going through with staff tomorrow. So we actually are actively working on kind of what that could look like to bring forward for conversation for you all.
You did say we plan to have a recommendation for council by June. So, yeah, thank you. Council Vice President Forsyth?
Thanks. Just making this quick. I really appreciate that that's coming in June. I'm really excited to hear about it. I think we should have the conversation about last year's contingency sooner because I think June is probably going to be too late for this particular organization to be able to know if they can produce this event.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I will note that that organization, I had a conversation with Axton a little bit ago, who asked me about that fund, and I basically did say that it's not up and running yet, and that it would be coming in the future. So it's not at the moment open for applications, but hopefully we will have that opportunity and can use that for future events. It's also We'll see how it goes, but it's also meant for kind of starting up new events as well. So, but we'll see how we scope it. So we can look back at the contingency, and I guess I would just say if any council members do want to bring forward any proposals, feel free to do so. I know we do have a hopper item for 2 weeks from now that is going to be on the agenda. 3 weeks. All right. Any other items for go to the order or talk time? Actually, talk time before go to the order.
We're not here next week. It's a 5th Tuesday, so folks shouldn't come and find us.
Yep, thank you. All right. With that, I'll close out the council talk time item. Anything for go to the order? All right. Well, thank you all for a good discussion tonight. This meeting is adjourned.